Happy Thursday. Welcome in. This is Three Man Front on Jocks 94.5. Great radio stations around the state of Alabama. The Ump up in Huntsville. How about Jocks 740 in Montgomery? Appreciate everybody tuning us in. Pat Landrum, not here again. Molly and Conrad. Why do you look at me like that when I say his name?
It's just funny. I know you miss him.
I was about to say, Molly, we know what it is.
I haven't had any communication with him for a couple of days.
I know, it's been hard on you.
I hope he's okay.
No, it has been. You've been having withdrawals.
I hope he hasn't had an accident or anything or caught in a snowdrift.
Molly and I have had to try to lift your spirits all week, Pat.
And y'all have done a good job. Molly has been playing hurt this week.
I have. I'm feeling better, though, everybody.
She is, because she's got 18 South wardrobe on today.
I do.
So she's feeling really good.
Some comfy pants.
So have I. And you got the
Yeah,
hat
I
on.
do. We all
How
do.
about that?
of us.
All of us has got 18 South on today. So
That's right.
shout out to Patrick Isbell and the fine folks down at the Edge, and of course in Trussville at 18 South. Man, what a game last night down on the plains of Auburn. You remember a couple weeks ago when y'all chastised me when I said it's just boring covering Auburn basketball? Remember that?
Well, it wasn't the last couple of games, but, you know.
It was last night.
It was.
I mean, boring to the point to where, my goodness gracious. I mean, they just absolutely just. You think Chris Beard wakes up in the middle of the night and sweats, like going, "Oh my God, I got to play Auburn again"?
Yeah, he certainly will after last night. Hopefully you're not going to play them again in the SEC tournament or the NCAA tournament. I would imagine Chris Beard does not want any of that.
So both Mississippi teams come into the state of Alabama, and they just leave with their backsides tanned pretty well. Auburn wins last night, 106-76. The 69th straight sellout there at Neville Arena, and it did not disappoint. Auburn never trailed. It was the 9th time this season that the Tigers never trailed in a game on their schedule. Tigers went on that 22-2 run, and I will give Ole Miss credit because they actually made it a game.
They did.
And but they still trailed by 10 at halftime. You had Janai Broome and Chad Baker-Mazzara had 28 combined points at halftime. They were 6 of 8 from deep. So it was an impressive performance. And then the second half, it just got really, really silly. I mean, just everything they did was at a high clip, and Auburn took care of business.
Yeah, I mean, I remember yesterday when we were talking about this game, I said I thought it would be similar to the Alabama-Mississippi State game. However, it was going to be
close.
Yeah. However, it would have been bold to predict anybody to win by 30. So I thought Auburn would win by, 15, something like that. Well, it was very similar to the Alabama and Mississippi State game, including the score. But yeah, I mean, once it was 7-7, and then Auburn goes on that run, like you mentioned, you do give credit to Ole Miss. They made it a 6-point game at one point, but for Auburn, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. You just couldn't miss. I mean, offensively, it was very similar to what we saw again 2 nights ago, right? That version of Auburn right there, nobody in the country is beating them. Even I would argue Alabama playing at their best would have a difficult time playing Auburn at their best because they were absolutely lights out, over 50% from 3. Like you said, Janai Broome continued his good work, 24 points, 9 boards, 4 assists for you on the night. Chad Baker-Mazzara, maybe his best game of the year, offensively speaking, at least.
And that's coming from a guy that had a stomach bug, and he was hooked up to an IV the day before,
right.
Did not practice.
Yep.
Pretty good for a guy with a stomach bug.
Yeah, when you go 8 for 12 from the floor, 4 of 5 from 3, 22 points to go with 3 boards and assist for him was really big. You got 13 from Denver Jones, Miles Kelly, and Chaney Johnson. They all hit 13 for you. And then Pettiford, who didn't have a lot to do scoring, but he has 6 assists for you. So it was another group effort for Auburn last night. And yeah, like you said, I think Ole Miss is going to be happy to be done with the Auburn Tigers. Hopefully for this year, maybe they get to see them again in postseason play. But a very impressive win for Auburn. And this was one not to say that, again, they're not at risk of really anything depending on how their season ends. But now you have 2 tough road trips to Kentucky and Texas A&M. So it's nice to get this one at home before you hit the road.
So the last 2 games for Janai Broome, 55 points, 23 rebounds, 8 assists, 4 blocks, 2 turnovers. 2.
Pretty good.
If he is not the National Player of the Year, then they should stop giving the award out.
Yeah, and I think, at times this year, and I mean, this is how it goes with, the Heisman, MVPs in professional sports, right? Is it kind of goes back and forth at times, because we've had this discussion throughout the season of there were times where it's, oh yeah, you got to give it to Janai Broome. Then there were times where it's, okay, maybe Cooper Flagg is the player of the year because he's been very impressive as well. But now, when you factor in what Janai Broome's done in these last few games for Auburn, doing it while still not at 100%, going up against the level of competition that he is on a nightly basis, in the SEC. I just don't think there's any way you can not give him the award at this point. I know he missed a couple of games earlier in the year, but what he's done since coming back from injury while still being a little limited at times is remarkable.
So the Tigers 106 points last night. That was the most in an SEC game since January the 23rd, 2021. So it's been over 4 years since Auburn has had that type of offensive output in the Southeastern Conference. Auburn's now 26 victories this season are tied for the 5th most in program history, and we're not even to the SEC basketball tournament or the NCAA tournament. So just keep on racking up those records.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're not going to be able to get to 30 wins in the regular season. You'd be able to cap out at 29, but I mean, if you're able to go 29-2, 28-3, that's just going to go down as one of the best regular seasons, obviously, in Auburn basketball history, and one of the more impressive years in SEC history, just based on how competitive the league is this year. And but it's all going to come down to the postseason. And we know, you don't want to take these games for granted, but I think based on how you played last night, you got a lot of people chomping at the bit to get postseason play started.
Auburn's 14-1 in the SEC. That is the best 15-game starting conference play in program history. So another record-setting night last evening down at Neville Arena. Let's hear from Bruce Pearl post-game on the big victory for the Tigers.
We played one of our best games of the year at Ole Miss, going back and looking at that game. And Ole Miss played really well there as well. That was one of the best wins we've had in the league. And then coming off the heels of beating Georgia on Saturday, we took a look at the schedule. For the first time all year, I probably looked at more than just the next game. And I looked at Ole Miss at home, at Kentucky, where we haven't won since 1988, at Texas A&M, and then home against Alabama, and figured, we pretty much better get this one because they're all going to be tough. And I thought that obviously we played so well offensively, shot it so well, shared it so well. I just think that the pieces, there's just some really special pieces. Chad Baker gets off to a phenomenal start. Wasn't able to practice yesterday because he had a stomach virus, and he's on IVs last night and this morning, and battled back, and played great. Chennai was dominant on the inside. I love our shooting percentages. I thought that we just shot the ball and shared it. We shot it and shared it. And as a result, we put up a pretty big number.
Big win last night for Auburn as they continue to roll. Coming up at the bottom of the hour, we're going to talk to Nick Roush from Kentucky Sports Radio. That's the next big one on Auburn's schedule. It's a road game at Rupp Arena. We will talk a little bit more about what took place in the other games in the Southeastern Conference, including Kentucky. It was a wild night indeed. 11 o'clock, we're going to talk to Rodney Orr, Rob Pathy, former Auburn DB at 11:45. And then at 12:30, we're going to get a little taste, a little preview of Tennessee, Alabama on Rocky Top on Saturday. Vince Ferrara from our sister station, the Sports Animal 99.1 FM in Knoxville, Tennessee. He will join us to discuss that big game coming up between those two teams. So Auburn maintains its 2-game lead in the SEC with 3 games to play. The Tigers clinched a double bye in the SEC tournament by getting that win last night against the Ole Miss Rebels. Now, the rest of the docket in the SEC last night. Let's start with the next opponent for the Auburn Tigers, the Kentucky Wildcats. They were winners last night, 83-82. It was a back-and-forth game. UK's Ortega Owe scored the last 18 points for Kentucky. It was like, just give me the ball, get out of my way. I'll take care of business. He had 28 points on the night. Oklahoma shot 58% in the second half against Kentucky, but Kentucky got it done when they needed to get it done in a very, very chippy, emotional game there in Norman. Kentucky gets out of there with a 1-point win.
Yeah, I mean, it was a wild game, and I'll be honest, I mean, it was close throughout, but just watching it, I had the feeling of, okay, Oklahoma's going to find a way to win this game, right? As competitive as it was, it just felt like for a lot of the game, for me at least, like they just maybe have, maybe they're just a step ahead of Kentucky, and they're ultimately going to find a way. But what Ortega Owe did, like you said, down the stretch there for Kentucky was remarkable, and even the last shot he hit to give Kentucky the lead.
Oh, that was
with like 8 seconds left. I mean, it was like a layup / hook shot, over the, it was insane. But it was just that kind of night for him, right? Like he was just throwing shots up and they were falling because he was He was absolutely incredible. And yeah, this was one you needed if you're Kentucky, because you had the loss to Alabama. Now you're going to have to play Auburn this weekend. And, they're not at risk of falling out of the tournament or anything, but you want to stay somewhere in that 4 seed line and stay in contention for something like that. And this certainly goes a long way for you. And this was a game for Oklahoma. I mean, you're going to be kicking yourself over this one, because this would have essentially cemented your status in the NCAA tournament. It was at home. It just wasn't their night ultimately, and Kentucky just kind of took over in the last couple of minutes, and it was very, very impressive to be able to go and do that on the road. And that was a big win for Kentucky with who they have coming up.
Sooners fall to 4-11, and the fans were not too happy after the game. If you saw the video in which folks were throwing beer cans and beers down on the Kentucky players as they were leaving the floor.
Don't be like Texas fans. Come on now.
Not a very good scene with the commissioner of the Southeastern Conference sitting courtside.
Yeah, not great. And it was just bizarre because at the end of the game, you have the officials that go over to the table to do a review, and you're sitting here thinking, man, are they really going to call a foul on this last play on a loose ball and send Oklahoma to the line?
Well, this is what I thought they were looking at. And I could be wrong here, but I think they were looking to see if they would have assessed a technical foul. Because
on Garrison,
there could have been a taunting.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think they were looking at the clock. And then if he had said something, I think if he had pointed or if he had made physical contact, I think that they would have possibly called a technical foul on Kentucky. And that would have obviously sent Oklahoma to the free throw line and the potential of winning the game. But I think once they reviewed it, it was apparent that whatever was said or whatever they were looking at was not something that they felt comfortable doing in that atmosphere with the clock at 0.
Yeah, and I mean, I understand, because right after, I guess, it was just bizarre because you had the players that did the handshake line. They were already essentially like, all right, the game's over, let's do our thing and get off the court. And then they have to sit there and wait for the officials to review it. And, when you're watching it in real time, it looked like Garrison and one of the Oklahoma players were about to fight at the very end of the game. And so, yeah, I think they were probably looking at that, but I guess whatever he said or whatever, maybe it was after the clock hit 0, and so there's nothing they could do, or it wasn't worth assessing a foul. But, if you're Kentucky, you'll take it by the skin of your teeth. You'll take it.
83-82. The other interesting game, well, there's a couple more, but Vandy 86-84 over Texas A&M. There were 75 free throws shot in this basketball game. 75. And that was a reason why a lot of Kentucky fans were on social media completely ticked off at the fact that that game was lasting so long. I don't even know what time it officially flipped over. Was it 7 or 8 minutes into the actual game?
I think there were about 8 minutes left in the first half.
Okay, so it was over the first half.
If I'm not
done with.
Yeah, it was a while.
Yeah, so Vandy's Tyler Nickel, he was the hero for the Commodores last night. He had a career high 7 3-pointers. It was a physical game, 75 free throws shot. The game lasted 2 hours and 40 minutes. Man, I hope the UAB Wichita State game is not that long tonight.
Yeah, I hope for your sake that it's not either. And, you brought up how many free throws there were. But at one point, I mean, there was a huge discrepancy in the sense that A&M had shot a bunch of free throws. Vanderbilt hadn't really shot all that many. And then in typical fashion, right, in crunch time down the stretch, you're going to keep fouling guys and giving them opportunities, and credit to, Vandy for hitting their free throws. But, oh, my gosh, yeah, it dragged on for way too
on. And on.
And A&M almost had a chance, though.
Yes, they did. The Doors are now 4-8 in quad 1 games. That's big for Vandy. They cemented their spot in the NCAA tournament. They have 3 wins versus top 15 opponents. That's the most since 2006.
That'll do.
For Vanderbilt. They're 7-8 in the SEC. Think about A&M. How A&M was trending in the right direction. They have now lost their last 3 games in a row. They are 9-6 in the SEC. So just a couple weeks ago, we were proclaiming them a strong number 2 seed. And heck, if certain things happen, they might be on the 1 line. And this conference will just absolutely just chew you up and spit you out.
Yeah, they're having a similar end of their season to football. I mean, let's be honest, right? Let's remember, I mean, we were talking about A&M going to Atlanta for the SEC championship. Then you go to Auburn. That doesn't go your way. You go to Texas. That doesn't go your way. And then you find yourself just going to a bowl game. And so now for A&M, yeah, I mean, it's tough. I mean, when Wade Taylor goes 3 of 10, I know he ended up having 21 points because he made up for it at the charity stripe. But That's kind of my thing with Texas A&M is they just remind me a little bit of a worse version than Tennessee, right? When their scores are on and everybody's playing well offensively, they're going to be able to win a lot of games. But when they're having an off night or their best players not contributing at the level that, Wade Taylor has been accustomed to the last couple of years, he's only averaging 15 points a game this year. It's just been a little bit of a rough stretch for A&M, and I know they've been banged up at times, but yeah, that was that one certainly isn't going to do you any favors. And like you said, Pat, for Vanderbilt, I mean that cements you right now. I think there's no doubt that they're an NCAA tournament team, and that's what Lenardi had said yesterday going into the game was a win for Vanderbilt would put them as a lock essentially.
Well, Arkansas, they get a big win at home in overtime. They almost handed it away to the Longhorns, and Trey Johnson just includes to set all sorts of records as a freshman for Texas. He had 39 points last night, which was a record for a freshman at the University of Texas. He was 7 of 11 from three-point range, but it was not enough. The Razorbacks were outscored 17-5 over the final 6 minutes of regulation, but they had a 17-point overtime period to get the win, 86-81. Arkansas had 5 players in double figures. Big Z had 18 points. The Hogs, all of a sudden, are 6-9 in the Southeastern Conference. Texas going the other direction, 5-10.
Yeah, and now we'll see how the latest bracketologies look, but we knew going into the game that it was essentially the winner was gonna, be in a pretty good spot, and the loser was kind of going to be hanging on by a thread to their spot in the NCAA tournament. But I mean, for Arkansas to get that win without Thero, who has been so big for them this season, I thought was really, really impressive. And Trey Johnson is incredible. And I think he's the kind of guy, right? If Texas gets in the tournament and they win a game or two because he just absolutely lights it up, nobody's going to be surprised. He leads the SEC in scoring as a true freshman. But this Arkansas team, they just passed the eye test to me at this point, Pat. Just watching them play, you can tell that you had so many different players. You had one guy, it's Brazil, I believe is the only player that was a holdover from last year's Arkansas team. You had some guys from Kentucky. You had a bunch of other guys coming in through the transfer portal and recruiting. And it feels like it just took them a while to figure out how to play with each other, right? And to have had the success that they have had here lately without Boogie Fland, who is arguably their best player, you have to give credit to Coach Cal. Love him or hate him, the way that he's turned this season around and made Arkansas, they're a team in my eyes. You're not going to want to play them in the NCAA tournament. I'm not saying they're going to go on a crazy run or anything, but just the physical style that they play, they can be a thorn in anybody's side. And yeah, really impressive win.
So that was what took place last night in the Southeastern Conference. When we come back on Three-Man Front, we'll set the stage for tonight's action, not from the Southeastern Conference, but UAB Sanford's got big games determining what their conference seeding is going to look like. And we'll give you the latest bracket. What if the tournament started today in Nashville, what it would look like for Alabama and Auburn and the rest of this crazy Southeastern Conference. This is Three-Man Front on a Thursday, Jocks 94.5. That was a wild night in the SEC. After the SEC dominance, I guess the next conference would be the Big Ten Conference. I think Joe Lunardi says they've got, 10 teams as of right now that is in the NCAA tournament. The game of the night in that conference came in College Park, Maryland, as the Turtles were hosting the Spartans from East Lansing, Michigan. This is the way it sounded on Fox Sports.
Gillespie for three. Goal or no. Holloman looks the clock. Half court for the win. Oh! Oh my goodness! Holloman from half court to win it on the road.
How about that? Michigan State gets a big road win. This Maryland team, I've watched them the last couple weeks. They're a surprisingly good team, and they could provide an issue or two in the NCAA tournament. Michigan State, Tom Izzo's they're putting together just quite a run this season. But getting that win on the road in the Big Ten, that was a special night for the Spartans.
That felt like all right, we're almost to March. It would have been more fitting if it was like on March 1st, if we got that on Saturday, but it felt like, okay, these are the types of moments you get in the NCAA tournament when everyone freaks out. And for him to hit it was closer to like a 3/4 court shot than a half court shot. It was insane. No, that was a huge win for Michigan State. And sorry, Dad. My dad's a big Maryland fan and an alum there, so I know that was rough for him last night. But Maryland's going to be a team. If you follow this, I think there's going to be a lot of people that have them as maybe a Sweet 16, Elite 8
You
kind
do
of
not
pick.
want them in your side of the bracket.
No, they are good. And also, as we know, Tom Izzo typically does quite well when he gets to the NCAA tournament.
So tonight, the UAB Blazers, they are on the road taking on Wichita State. That is an 8 o'clock tip-off. Pre-game show starts at 7:30 over on Jocks 2 100.5. Yaxel Lindeborg, who is going to be a guest on this program tomorrow.
That's right.
Hopefully he'll be in a good mood. Yaxel's number 2 in the nation for double-doubles with 19. It was weird. Janai Broom did not get a double-double last night.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, I think Yaxel has 9 straight games with a double-double, something like that.
Yep, and the Blazers have won 11 straight games when they score at least 80 points, so that's a magic number tonight against Wichita State. They're actually an underdog, according to Vegas, on the road against the Shockers.
Hey, they beat Memphis.
They sure did.
A couple weeks ago.
They're in Wichita. UAB is 16-3 when scoring at least 80 points this season. So take a listen to this. UAB nationally, they're the 5th fastest team in regards to scoring, 5th in fast break points, 9th in rebounds per game. This is nationally. I'm not talking about in the American Conference. I'm talking about nationally. And they're 12th overall in scoring offense in college basketball.
So 3 of the top 12 scoring teams in all of college basketball
reside in the state of Alabama.
Within 2 hours of where we are right here.
Yes.
That's remarkable.
It's pretty cool. Remember when the state of Alabama used to be about defense? Remember that?
Yeah.
More about football. But yeah, basketball-wise, it's pretty impressive. So this is a big one tonight for Wichita State and UAB both. UAB is trying to keep pace with North Texas, who is number 2 in the American Athletic Conference. You want to be, just like in most of these conferences, you want that double bite. You want to be able to be one of the top 4 teams as you get ready for the tournament. Meanwhile, the Blazers got a huge home game, almost a sellout, I understand, at Bartow Arena on Sunday afternoon. That's a 3 o'clock tip-off against Memphis. And you would hate for UAB to go on the road tonight and not perform.
Don't say it.
I'm not going to say the word, but I'm just saying
say
they
it.
don't perform, and then you come home against Memphis on Sunday. You'd like to have a little bit of momentum as they head into Bartow.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And I mean, Wichita's a team that, has not been particularly great this year. They did, as I said, have that big win over Memphis here recently. But no, I mean, if you're UAB, I understand they're not favored. But this is a game you should be able to go on the road and take care of business. And then, yeah, like you said, bring that momentum back home because you also just don't get caught looking ahead to the Memphis game. We all know it's important. We all know it's going to be a great atmosphere there at Bartow. But yeah, just focus on the task at hand tonight and go handle your business because, yeah, UAB is definitely a better basketball team than this Wichita State team. But as we've seen, they're capable of beating the best in the conference.
So Samford has finished up their home portion of their schedule. They have a couple of conference games left. The Bulldogs are on the road at VMI. Samford's 21-8 on the season, 11-5 in the SoCon. That's good for 3rd place. So Bucky's team trying to head in the right direction as they get ready for hopefully another postseason run. So get to pay attention tonight to Samford basketball, and then you can wrap up the evening with UAB at Wichita. So that will be going on later tonight. If the SEC basketball tournament started right now, getting ready to tip off, your first games would include Mississippi State at South Carolina, Texas versus Georgia,
Okay. SEC championship rematch.
Yeah.
Arkansas against Oklahoma,
Okay, that'd be a good one.
Okay.
Vandy and LSU. That would be the 4 games
That's
on day 1 of the tournament. Kentucky would await the winner of Mississippi State, South Carolina.
okay.
Mizzou would face the winner of Texas, Georgia. The Aggies against either Arkansas or Oklahoma. And Ole Miss would await the winner of Vandy and LSU. Auburn and Tennessee would be on one side of the bracket. They would have byes all the way to Friday to the quarterfinals. Florida and Alabama would be on the other side of the bracket. So if you're wanting to try to avoid Auburn, if you're Alabama, you want to either be the 3 or the 2 seed.
Well, you don't want to avoid them, Pat. You want to play them in the championship game.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, you're going to have to, you don't want to play them in the quarterfinals. That's my point.
No, but just so think about this. If you're, for Alabama, for example, all right, so your last 2 games of the regular season, Florida and Auburn, you could then go to the SEC tournament
Turn
and you
around
could
and play 'em
have
again.
4 of your last 5 games would be against Florida and Auburn, 2 of the 3 or 4 best teams in the country.
So Auburn, if obviously they've got a 2-game lead, they're going to be the number 1 seed. They would await the 3 teams and that pod, so to speak, of who they potentially could play on Friday would be Kentucky, Mississippi State, or South Carolina. They're playing Kentucky this Saturday.
Mhm.
And then you got to turn around in a couple weeks and potentially could play Kentucky again. Meanwhile, Alabama, the 3 teams in their pod, if they're the number 2 seed, they would either play Vanderbilt, LSU, or Ole Miss. Ole Miss, the team that beat Alabama in Coleman Coliseum earlier in SEC play.
Yep, that would be an interesting wrinkle there. But yeah, I mean, I think that's what we all want, right? And again, we will see as we get closer to the conference tournament how it's going to be handled in terms of, again, are you going to take the resting route? Or are you going to go for it? But to at least have on paper the potential for an Alabama-Auburn SEC tournament final, I think that's what a lot of our listeners would be very, very excited for. And I mean, we've talked about it. You're going to play it one more time in the regular season in the finale. If you play again in the SEC tournament and then potentially in the NCAA tournament, we could have 3 more iBobs left to go the rest of the way if we get lucky.
We're going to go to the Bluegrass State. Coming up next, Nick Roush is going to join us from Kentucky Sports Radio. We're going to preview Auburn, Kentucky this weekend and talk a little SEC hoops. That's next. 10:33, Jocks 94.5. Man, what a night in the SEC in basketball. Let's go up to the Bluegrass State from Kentucky Sports Radio. Nick Roush joins us here on the Buyers Ride Hotline. And Nick, man, what a game last night in Norman, Oklahoma, as Kentucky gets out of there with a 1-point win against the Sooners.
It was something else, man. They've lost a lot of games like that this year, but Otega Owe, they call him Otegatron around here, and he definitely activated it against his former team. Sometimes players get swallowed up by the moment when they're returning to their hometown and they're playing a former team. And the first half, it kind of looked like it was too big of a moment for him, and then he took over unlike anything I've ever seen. Scored 21 in the Cats' final 23 points, and some of those buckets down the stretch. I don't know how he got them to fall, but I know a lot of Kentucky fans are sure glad he did.
Nick, so how important was that win for Kentucky last night? Just knowing, you just came off the loss to Alabama. You're now going to host Auburn, which we'll talk about. But those are two big games there that you're kind of sandwiched in between. How important was it for Kentucky to get that win last night before hosting Auburn this weekend?
From a short-term perspective, you're exactly right. Like you never want to get into 3-game losing streak, right? You're going to lose some, especially on the road against a bubble team. You can rationalize it out, but a 3-game losing streak in February, that you get a little stink on you, and then they're not getting that on them. Big picture-wise, it's huge from a seeding standpoint because Kentucky has a lot of great wins this year. Mark Pope set a program record with the most top 15 wins in school history. But the injuries they've dealt with, I mean, they're still around 500 in SEC play. And so they needed that win to be able to get in a good, comfortable spot where they can get at least one bye and start their SEC tournament on Thursday, and then make sure that they're one of a 3 or a 4 seed when the brackets come out on Selection Sunday. You're not going to really be penalized if you lose to Auburn or at Missouri, but you could have if you lost at Oklahoma. So that was huge from a seeding standpoint for the Cats.
Well, you mentioned it, Nick, in regards to some injuries on this Kentucky basketball team. You got one piece of that back last night with Lamont Butler. The overall health of this team as they head down the stretch, should we see, maybe some guys resting up before the SEC tournament in Nashville, or what's the current status of the rest of the health of the team?
It is a little fickle because a lot of guys are dealing with injuries that if it feels good, then you can play, but it might not feel good today. Andrew Carr's had a lingering back issue. He played his best game against Alabama, but I think things kind of tightened up for him down the stretch at Oklahoma. I'm expecting him to play throughout, but that's something to monitor. Butler did fine. He played pretty well while dealing with a shoulder injury, but fouled out in the last 5 minutes. And then Jackson Robinson has a wrist injury, and that's the one that's going to be the most precarious because it's the shooting wrist. And, it's kind of important when you're playing basketball that your shooting wrist is healthy. And he started out, played in the first half. A few of his shots were short. He got a 3 to fall, had 7 points, but he did not play in the second half. He was on the bench with ice on it. So that's it's up in the air for the Auburn game Saturday at Rupp Arena.
So, Nick, I just kind of looking at this team as a whole, I feel like they're kind of hard to get a good read on because, I mean, this is a team, as you talked about earlier, I mean, they have so many impressive wins this year, but they started out 14-3. Now they're 5-6 in their last 11 games. I know we were just talking about the injuries. Do you kind of put that up to it being an injury problem? This is just a team that hasn't been 100% healthy for most of SEC play. Do you look at it more so as the league is just so competitive this year that it's just been, it's just been brutal for Kentucky? What's kind of your gauge on this team as we start to approach the postseason? Because I think you look at the first part of the season, really impressive, and then now it's been pretty up and down for them the last month and a half or so.
So a Kentucky fan wearing blue tinted glasses would just chalk it up to the injuries and the SEC being competitive, but some of it is just their flaws in personnel. They're not a good defensive team. They rely on offense and 3-point shooting, and when those aren't falling, it's tricky. And some of these matchups in the SEC, they don't have the athleticism to be able to keep guys in front of them, and they want to run and get up and down. And so if you get into one of these slobber knockers like they got into early in the season with Georgia, Vandy kind of mucked it up with them, as well as Ole Miss. I mean, Ole Miss was as bad as the losses they've had all year because Ole Miss played them physical and was still able to use that athleticism on the offensive end to really put Kentucky on their heels. So that's where it's hard to really define what their ceiling is in the NCAA tournament, because so much of it is going to be dictated on matchups. And that's, that's the name of the game down the stretch. So Kentucky has a very high ceiling, but therefore it can really bottom out if they get a team that beats them up and can really take them off the dribble.
Nick Roush joins us here on Three Man Front from Kentucky Sports Radio, talking a little bit about the Wildcats' big win last night against Oklahoma and the rest of the Southeastern Conference. So Rupp Arena Saturday, it's going to be rocking as the number one team in the country, the Auburn Tigers, come calling. Just when you've been able to watch Auburn, just your immediate impressions of this team.
I was one of those who wanted to believe ahead of the season that there wasn't going to be enough balls. There was only going to be one ball in the court for all these guys. But man, they're a wagon. They're really good. They're really, really, really good. They pose so many different matchup problems. And when they're hot, like it is so hard to stop them. I mean, and I think the most impressive part about Auburn is that, I've watched some dominant Kentucky teams in the past, and what makes a team great is their ability to find a way to win on their off night. And that's really what I think sets Auburn apart, is they don't need to shoot 60% from the floor to beat you. They can grind it out. They can win in different styles. Now, I do think that's one thing that if you were going to knock them, is Bruce Pearl's team doesn't necessarily dictate the pace. But right now it doesn't matter, because they can win playing whatever style they want. They're very, very good, and Janai Broome is the National Player of the Year, and I really don't think there's any any debate in it, right? Like, take your Cooper Flag. He's a great player for Duke. He's an NBA player, but Janai Broome is the best player in all of college basketball.
So, Nick, is there somewhere where you look at this matchup? I mean, Auburn is traveling to Rupp Arena, somewhere they haven't won since 1988. Is there somewhere outside of just, the mental aspect of having to go on the road and try to win somewhere you haven't in over 3 decades? Is there an area where you look at Kentucky and go, all right, that's a mismatch? That's where I see Kentucky having an advantage over this Auburn team when they roll in on Saturday.
I don't know if it's as much as like a personnel standpoint, because I think for a lot of it, it's just how well can Kentucky can defend the 3-point line. I mean, I sound like such a goober, like, oh, no crap, of course they can win. But really, it's like, can Kentucky outscore them by 12 points from the 3-point line, right? Like, can they defend the 3 ball well, which they have done, up until last night. They've done really well over the last 2-3 weeks, limiting teams from behind the 3-point line. And then can they get hot? Because the one thing that is great about this Kentucky team that's similar to the Alabama team, no lead is safe. And in the blink of an eye, you can look up and the Cats just went on a 12-0 run. If those runs hit at the right time and you get Rupp Arena rocking, they can put some real pressure on Auburn to close it out. But I do think, I mean, it's going to be hard for the Cats to knock off the best team in the country if Jackson Robinson's wrist isn't letting him, knock down 3 or 4 threes in this game against the Tigers.
Nick, I was curious. You've been around this league for a while and you've covered it. And in most years, you could always pencil in Kentucky. Obviously, when Nolan Richardson had it rolling at Arkansas, Arkansas was one of those teams. It's been kind of a new thing for us down here in Alabama, covering the Alabama Crimson Tide's run to the Final Four. You had Auburn make it to the Final Four a few years ago up in Minneapolis. Just your overall thoughts about the depth of this league this year, and have you ever seen it like this ever before in any league in college basketball?
No. And I wasn't around for the late 80s Big East. And then there was a run when like Louisville and Pitt and the Big East was loaded in like 05 where they were really good. But the difference in all of it is just the top to bottom talent. I mean, and where the SEC has been able to really set itself apart is just financially through football and making good coaching hires, so that even the quote unquote bad teams have stars. Trey Johnson had 39 last night for Texas, and they might not make the tournament. Asa Newell at Georgia, he's a great basketball player. And Jeremiah Fears and Jalen Moore, like that is a great combination at Oklahoma. And if you drop that team in the ACC, they might be, second or third in it, right? Like the depth of this league is nuts. And then at the top end, like there are a legit 5 teams that can make the Final Four if the bracket falls the right way for them. And you hadn't been able to say that in the past, right? Normally it's 1 or 2. There's a legit 5, and then you could have some team that's, like Ole Miss is one of those where they might be a 5, 6 seed that has things goes the right way, and they could make a Final Four. So this league is as good as it's ever been, and it's going to be hard to replicate this. But I do think just with the coaching and with the financial backing, like this isn't gonna slow down anytime soon, folks. It's here to stay for the foreseeable future.
So, Nick, I know this is a question that you can probably have a better answer to once the entire season has concluded and we see where the Wildcats ultimately end up in postseason play. But right now, with 3 games left in the regular season, how would you evaluate Mark Pope's first year down there in Kentucky? I know all of the drama surrounding the situation with Coach Cal and his departure and bringing Mark Pope in. I think a lot of people that maybe weren't familiar with him have been impressed by what he's done. But for you, from the Kentucky standpoint, what do you and what do the fan base think of the first season under Mark Pope so far?
He's checked every box that he can check up until this point. Really, the only knock on him was the loss to Arkansas. That was an emotional gut punch. Kentucky fans wanted that one really bad over John Calipari. But that one really bad doesn't overwhelm all of the good. He's recruited well. He got 2 blue chip guys from the state of Kentucky. Kentucky high school doesn't typically produce 2 5-star guys, but they got it. He built this team well out of the transfer portal. He's dealt with a lot of adversity from the injury front, and he's beat rivals. I mean, when you open the season and you beat Duke, Kentucky had been terrible in the Champions Classic as of late. They hadn't beaten Duke, and I think since '98 maybe. I mean, it had been a really, really long time. So to be able to get that signature win, to come from behind and beat Gonzaga, you take care of business against Louisville, and then you sweep Tennessee as an underdog in both games. They're dogs in both games. Like that is, you do that, you're in great standing with the Kentucky basketball fan base. Things are trending upward. You know that they can give more when he has time to get more high-end talent from the high school ranks. But the last box that remains unchecked is the NCAA tournament and the SEC tournament. As much as the first-round exits in the NCAA tournament were a big reason why fans wanted John Calipari out, the first-round exits in the SEC tournament were probably just as equal, right?
Yeah.
So Pope, that was of all of the things you could talk yourself into about the hire, not having the NCAA tournament win was one that definitely had, caused some trepidation. So if he can get the Cats to the second weekend, it's the longest Sweet 16 drought in school history. If you can erase that and move forward, fans are going to be over the moon this offseason.
That is Nick Roush, covers the Kentucky Wildcats in the Southeastern Conference for Kentucky Sports Radio. Nick, always great to have you on and catch up. Hopefully we'll catch up with you soon down the road as March Madness right around the corner.
Always a pleasure to join you all and Jocks.
Thanks. Appreciate it very much. That is Nick Roush joining us on the Buyers Right Hotline for all your insurance, financial, and HR needs. It's Buyers Right Insurance, a Higginbotham partner. Top of the hour, we'll go to Tuscaloosa. We'll hear from Rodney Orr from Tider Insider, Rob Pate as well. Later in the program, we'll talk to Vince Ferrara. We'll get an update from the Tennessee Volunteers as Rocky Top will host Alabama coming up this weekend. This is Jocks 94.5. Great conversation with Nick Roush, who covers the Kentucky Wildcats. I thought he was right down the middle, man. I mean, he didn't sugarcoat what's going on with this Kentucky basketball team. And it sounds like I don't know what the point spread is going to be, but it sounds like he's probably leaning towards Auburn winning that game.
I would think so, but I know. I mean, it was cool for him to say, yeah, when I asked him about, kind of what's been up with Kentucky the last month and a half. And it was, if you have the blue tinted glasses on, you're going to say it's just because of the injuries. We're going to be fine once we're 100%. But it's just the reality of, you're in an incredibly competitive league now. And it's not like the old days where Kentucky had the most talent every year. And you could kind of just roll the ball out there in a lot of games and just based on talent alone on paper, be in a good spot. So, I thought he was great, and that's going to be an excellent game up there because, again, we all expect Auburn to win, I think. But as I said, as Bruce Pearl said after the game last night, it's been 37 years since you've been to Rupp Arena and won a game there.
It's been a minute. Let's go to the phones, 1-800-239-WJOX. Corey joins us here on Three Man Front. Hey, Corey.
Hey, Landry. How's it going, man?
Landry not here, but we're here. So, yeah, he'll be back Monday.
All right. I want to get your thoughts on UAB and Wichita State tonight. Wichita State's won 6 in a row in the month of February. They're undefeated in the month of February, but many of you don't, But this is probably this is going to be one tough basketball game for UAB tonight, and the reason why I say that is because I believe their leading scorer is the Conference USA, is the American Athletic Conference Player of the Week. So,
Xavier Bell, is that who you're talking about?
Xavier Bell. I saw him against Florida Atlantic last week. So, this one's going to be a really, really tough game tonight, especially in the paint, because Quincy Ballard is a workload down there in the paint. I mean, I think he's about 6'11".
It's going to be a good game tonight, no doubt about it. And I just looked earlier this morning. UAB was a 1.5-point underdog, and as of this moment, it is now a pick'em. So the line has moved to a pick'em. So UAB, if they can get to 80 points, you like their chances tonight. They're one of the best teams in America, so it should be a good one.
I really want to see our team play defense, and I've been stressing this as a fan. I've been to almost every single one of their home games, and I got to tell you right now, we have got to fix the defense, man. And there have been times this year that we've played defense. I mean, go back to the North Texas game,
right?
And I remember the game against Tulane earlier in the year at home. They just absolutely ran over Tulane because and the defense was just phenomenal in that game. We have got to really, really rebound the basketball, especially on the defensive side. I mean, you cannot give this team no second chances. Second chance points. Points off turnovers. Offensive rebounding, we have got to really dominate those areas if this team wants to win in Wichita, Kansas tonight.
No, you're right. And I was going to ask you, Corey, do you have tickets for Sunday's game, or do you have season tickets? You're going to be there anyway.
I have season tickets. I'm going to be there anyway.
Okay. Well, it's supposed to be near a sellout, so it should be a really, really good atmosphere on Sunday.
Oh, I hope so. I'm going to say this, guys. 2 home games left. Memphis Sunday. We got Wichita State tonight. We can win this one tonight, and man, then Memphis game is going to be huge. Oh, and also UAB is undefeated at home in conference play.
That's right. Sure are.
Hello, thanks. Maybe you should send that message to Memphis fans.
I'm sure Memphis will have a good bit of folks coming down off I-22. Corey, thanks for your call. Appreciate you listening here on Jocks 94.5. We're going to go to Tuscaloosa, Alabama next. We'll talk to Rodney Orr from Tider Insider, get his thoughts on the Alabama basketball team, and also some word out there on the recruiting trails, Conrad, about possibly one of the top receivers in America looking at the University of Alabama.
That's right, and he will have the most popular jersey across frat houses across the Tuscaloosa area. Booby Feaster one of the top-rated wide receivers in 2026 getting interest from Alabama, so we will certainly ask Rodney about that.
All right. Got a lot to get into in the next 3 hours. Thanks for making us a part of your day. Download the Jocks 94.5 app. Take us along with you wherever you are, work, play, go to the lake, beach. We're here for you. This is Three Man Front.
Welcome into hour 2 of Three Man Front here on your Thursday morning. Conrad, Pat, and Molly here with you. Landrum will be back with us on Monday. We'll be joined by Tighter Insiders Rodney Orr here in just a couple of moments. But if you missed the news overnight, big night of SEC hoops. Auburn, a big win over Ole Miss, 106-76. Vanderbilt with the upset on the road there in College Station, 86-84 over Texas A&M. Kentucky squeaking by Oklahoma in the final seconds there, 83-82. And Arkansas taking down Texas in overtime, 86-81. So really, no matter which way you went last night, if you were watching SEC hoops, you got some good entertainment.
Absolutely. It was a good night of SEC basketball, and it will be the same coming up this weekend. Joining us on the Buyers Ride Hotline from Tuscaloosa, Tighter Insider's very own Rodney Orr joins us here on Three Man Front. Rodney, it seems like the Alabama basketball team, the last time that we talked, they were in the middle of that little rough spot, losers of 2 in a row, but they have gotten right the last 2 games, their home games and wins against Kentucky and Mississippi State.
Yeah, they sure have. I mean, obviously, the win against Kentucky kind of got them back on the right foot after they started the game slowly. I know that, again, that was an issue there for those 3 games, but they got it turned around against Kentucky. Really tough win, good win. to sweep Kentucky. What's that? Only 4 times in history, I think Alabama swept Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty amazing. And so Nate Oates has 2 of those, I think. Two of those sweeps, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, yeah, it was great to be able to do that and then kind of get back on the right foot. And, the game against Mississippi State, obviously, they shot the lights out of the place. They 22 threes. Youngblood had 27 points. So, they seem to be back on the right foot. But you know what? They better be, because they got a little tough stretch coming up starting Saturday with Tennessee, and then, of course, going to Florida and then finishing with Auburn.
Yeah, Rodney, I think the win over Mississippi State, for the fan base at least, was very important. Just kind of a reminder of how good Alabama can be when they're playing their A game. But just going back and looking at the last couple of weeks now you have back-to-back wins over top 25 teams. Before that, you had the back-to-back losses with Auburn and Missouri. And, there was maybe a little bit of concern after those losses. But just looking back at the last 2 or 3 weeks as a whole for Alabama, has your opinion changed of this basketball team at any point in that stretch, or has it just kind of been steadfast and now here we are where you're coming off back-to-back wins and it's just a little easier to be optimistic about them?
Well, I don't want to say that it wasn't a little bit alarming, the way they, lost to Auburn and then got handled pretty well by Missouri. But at the same time, it's a long basketball season. I mean, there's going to be ups and downs. Players are going to have ups and downs. Teams are going to have ups and downs. And you could see that this team had a lot of mental toughness, I think, throughout the season. I know after the loss to Ole Miss, there was a lot of concern, at least on TigerInsider.com, about the way they played, got manhandled in that game, and then they bounced back and had some great performances, really difficult, tough performances on the road against Texas A&M and Kentucky and so forth. And, they responded really, really well. And Nate Oates' teams, I think we're used to this now. When they get a dip, they're mentally tough. They come back, they play well, they get back on track, and I think that's the thing that happened here. And I know that Mark Sears, we talked about it here on this segment, was getting some criticism. Of course, he's considered the leader, and when things aren't going well, things kind of fell on him. But he really responded. He's responded big time, I think, and I think right now this team is starting to play again with confidence as they head down the stretch.
Rodney, have you ever seen anything like this in regards to this conference? You and I have been around long enough to where we remember when the SEC was fortunate if they got 3, 4, maybe on a good year, maybe 5 teams. Mm-hmm. But to have the depth that you're seeing right now, is it equivalent, in your opinion, of what the SEC West was when the division set back in 1992?
Yeah. It's every week. It's every game. I mean, you can't let your guard down. You have to play. That's what I'm saying. When you talk about having ups and downs, the competition is so great. I mean, you could play any team basically in the SEC, and if you're not on, you could be in for a long night. You could get exposed, and I think that's what we're seeing happens. I mean, Florida. The other night against Georgia was down by 23, and they end up losing the game. And there were a lot of people saying, hey, Florida might actually be the best team in the SEC here within the last week or two. And, you see what happens if you're not playing at your peak or playing well, you could be in for a long night.
So, Rodney, I just wanted to ask you, with your experience with being a part of Tiger Insider and all the great Alabama fans that are on there, how have you seen this change over the last handful of years? I mean, even going back maybe a decade or so, but just how the conversation has changed. Because I have to assume for the longest time, it was primarily football conversation, even in the off season. And now it just feels like, with the success, obviously, of the basketball program, the basketball has become a bigger deal to this fan base. I was just wondering if you could talk about kind of that growth and how you've seen that change maybe over the last 5 to 10 years with what you have on Tiger Insider.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, really, there's not much talk about football right now, even though you're headed into a very important spring practice starts next week. Most of the discussion, most of the focus, people want to talk about basketball. And think about this. In the last 6 seasons, Alabama's won 25 games, three of those seasons, including this one. Now, they're 2 wins away. So if they get 2 more wins, they're 25 wins on the season. It makes it the 4th time in Nate Oates' 6 years here that they've won 25 games. Now think about Anthony Grant had 1 25-win season. Gottfried had 2. Wimp had 3. And C.M. Newton had 1. So in 6 seasons, he's likely to produce at least 4 25-plus win seasons. So that's pretty amazing what he's done. And that winning certainly in the Final Four, of course, last year, and the way they've recruited. I mean, it's just built up incredible expectations. And I think Alabama's always had a very pretty strong basketball fan base. I think there was some frustrations over the years, obviously, that they didn't live up to the kind of expectations that Bama fans were hoping for. But now Nate Oates has given them a taste of it, and they want more. I'm telling you, it's really, like you said, it pretty much is the dominant conversation.
Well, so playing off of that, Rodney, do you think that because of the success of the football program and the high expectations and the high standard that the fan base holds the football program to, do you think that makes things more difficult for Alabama basketball? Not to say that there shouldn't be high expectations. They're clearly one of the best teams, but do you think all the success for football maybe kind of oozes over into basketball a little bit and people just expect, oh, well, this is just going to mirror the football program in terms of success?
Without question. Without question. I mean, you know, I really believe that you know, the expectations this year were that, I mean, if they lose a game, you know, well, basketball's a long season. It's not like football. You're going to lose a game. You're going to have ups and downs. So I do think that they hold basketball to that football standard that you're talking about. I don't think there's any question about that.
Talking to Rodney Orr from Tighter Insider on the Buyers Right hotline. Pivot to a little football conversation. So earlier this week, an article came out by On3 detailing a conversation they had with Kalen DeBoer, and he hinted about spring football and the A-Day game potentially being changed a little bit. What are some of the people around the program that you talk to, some of your insiders? Do they feel like this will be a drastic change coming up for A-Day, or just kind of a new spin on the A-Day activities?
Well, I think probably what we'll see is that you won't have a full-scale scrimmage and pads, would be my guess. I mean, you're going to, and again, I don't know 100% what they plan to do. Maybe even they don't know 100% right now. But, you know, again, you could see some drills and you could see 7-on-7 type stuff maybe. I'm not really 100% sure how much or what we will see. But I don't think we're going to see a full-scale scrimmage as we've seen in the past, you know, that has made A-Day such a big event for many, many years, but especially, as you guys know, really took off in 2007. But yeah, I think it's going to be significantly modified to the extent that we're not going to see a practice or scrimmage as we've seen in the past.
So, Rodney, I don't know if you've gotten a chance yet to check out the new documentary on Fox Nation following Alabama's and the 2024 season, because they just came out with the second episode yesterday. I watched it last night, and I thought it was really interesting how they focused a lot on Caden Proctor and Wilkin Formby, and I think a lot of people are probably learning for the first time that it looks like Formby actually played a huge role in Caden Proctor coming back to Alabama and their friendship, and that was a big thing that Caden Proctor missed up there in Iowa before he made the decision to come back. But looking at Formby and kind of getting a closer look at the struggles he went through last year and how he tried to respond to that, is this a guy that you expect in 2025 that we're going to look back on this 2024 season and say he took his lumps, he got some experience, and this is a guy we're going to look at as maybe a cornerstone of the offensive line for Alabama in 2025?
Yeah, and I haven't seen either one of the additions yet. But I'll tell you this: I agree with that. Well, I think Wilkin Formby, to kind of understand him, he didn't get a ton of development in high school. You know, he got here really raw, but he had all the tools. I mean, he's got tremendous size. He's 6'7" plus. He's 320. Very, very strong. Got all the tools. But didn't have a lot of development. Last year, he was put into some situations. He did really well in some of the run blocking. I think it was the speed off the edge that kind of got him a little bit, something that he really had not competed against. So it was new to him. But I think based on people I talk to, the people I know, and especially, Wilkin from being here in Tuscaloosa, knowing some people around his high school program, there's not a harder worker on the team, more dedicated player, more determined player. I think that Wilkin Formby can be an outstanding player. I think he's going to really develop this season. I think he's going to step up and be that right tackle. And again, I think he can be he's got potential to be a dominant run blocker. And I think as he continues to develop as a pass blocker, he's going to become a complete player.
All right, so I've got to ask you about the news about Bo Davis. It came out this morning that Bo Davis, outstanding defensive line coach. He was at Alabama, had a lot of success there. He went on to Texas. He was at LSU last year. He's leaving the college game. He's taking the job now with the New Orleans Saints. Just your thoughts on Bo moving on to the NFL.
You know, Pat, that doesn't really surprise me. I think the way NIL portal have changed things, it's not as attractive to coach the college level for some. And I think Bo is a guy who's kind of old school. You know, he came up really under Nick Saban and did a great job here in 2 stints as a defensive line coach. And I think just the way the changes that we have now, I think Bo probably was hoping to get back into the NFL. And, you know, LSU is his alma mater, no doubt about that. And, you know, he certainly, I know, liked being there. But I just think it's just the way the game is now on the college level that Bo really was attracted to getting back to the NFL. Now, I will say this. I know that he had a great time here. He had a great experience here. He really loved Alabama. You know, I think there was a time that he would certainly have considered very strongly coming here. In fact, if he would have taken another college job, probably the only one he would take before taking this Saints job would have been to come back to Alabama. But, you know, I think he really had his eyes focused on going to the NFL again. You know, he used to be with the Detroit Lions, and I think that's where he wanted to get back to.
Spending a few more moments here with Tighter Insiders Rodney Orr on 3-man front. All right, Rodney, I wanted to ask you a little recruiting bit here. So we got some news earlier. So we're going to have fun with the name. If he goes to Alabama, I already said you're going to see his jersey all over fraternity houses across the campus, but that is wide receiver Boobie Feaster. He's listed as the number 6 wide receiver in the 2026 class, according to On3. Looks like Alabama is starting to get in the mix for him. What can you tell us about Boobie Feaster, the 2026 wide receiver?
Yeah, Boobie's from the state of Texas. He was going to he reclassified. He was a 2027 kid, no doubt. You know, he's a big name. Ethan, I think is his real first name. I just really know him by Boobie for the most part. But he's a tremendous player. I mean, if you can get him out of the state of Texas, I know Texas is heavily involved there. That'd be a real coup. I know he's supposed to visit here pretty soon. I think maybe even next week, if I'm not mistaken. But he's a tremendous player, one of the top wide receivers. And again, he would have been, you know, maybe the top 2 or 3 wide receiver in the 2027 class, but he reclassified. So I'd keep an eye on him. And I'll ask Pat this, because I think Pat's been around a little bit longer than you have, Conrad.
I appreciate that. I'm going to take that as a compliment, Rodney. Thank you.
I will take it as a compliment too, Rodney.
Yeah, hey, it's a compliment both ways.
That's
Absolutely.
Right.
But Pat probably remembers there has been a Boobie that played for Alabama previously. Do you remember who it was, Pat?
I am trying to think. You've got me stumped, Rodney. Who was it?
Well, you need to ask that question to your audience then and use it as a trivia.
Yeah, okay. Pat Ponders. Yeah, there you go. Okay.
So
interesting.
I don't know if I should Google search Alabama Boobie. I don't know if that would go very well for me. But
well,
I'll
give you a hint though. Now he signed with Alabama, played here a couple of years and left, but there was a Boobie here.
Okay. All right. I will. I'll have to do a deep dive on Boobie.
I tell you what. If one of your listeners calls in and gets that one right, Pat, just send them to Tighter Insider and I'll give them a free membership. How about that?
Oh, looky there. Okay.
Oh, bingo.
All right.
Bingo. All right. We will absolutely do that. We will. If someone knows, you need to call us at 1-800-239-WJOX, and we will try to see if we can get an answer to the former Boobie that played at Alabama. And if they get it right, or the first person to tell us who it is and it's correct, then you get a free subscription to Tighter Insider. That's awesome.
There you go.
That's incredible. And then obviously I'll get the information and then I'll be in touch, Rodney. And the phone lines.
We already have people calling
The phone lines are lighting up as we speak, Rodney. So
there you go.
It's good to know that people still listen to the radio. So I'm just kidding. Hey, Rodney, always a pleasure, my friend. We will talk at you soon. Thank you.
Okay, Pat, Conrad, you guys take care.
Thank you. That is Rodney Orr, one of the best in the business, just first-class individual. He joined us on the Buyers Right hotline for all your insurance, financial, and HR needs. It's Buyers Right Insurance. So a reminder, if you know, I do not know the answer to this. I
don't either.
I will have to search for it. But if you call the radio station at 1-800-239-WJOX and you do not have a Tighter Insider subscription and you get this right, Rodney's going to give you a free subscription. That was a great question. Maybe we should do that each and every week. Obscure Alabama football players. Do you remember them? And maybe Rodney will give away a subscription, not prescription, subscription. Did you find it?
No,
Okay.
I'm struggling to find it because everything that comes up now is Booby Feaster.
Okay, gotcha. All right, so there's your assignment, Jocks 94.5 and Three Man Front listeners. Give us the former Booby that played at Alabama. Rodney said what, 2 years? Then he transferred?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. All right. We'll get to those phone calls next. This is Three Man Front. We have a full bank of callers. A lot of people claim to know who the former booby was that played at the University of Alabama. I was not aware of that. I mean, Rodney stumped me. And so
took a little bit of digging too. It wasn't just like an easy Google search.
No, you really had to do your work there. But Rodney has given me the name off the air, and we're going to go to the calls. And the first person that gets this correct, you win a free subscription to Tighter Insider. And so we'll get your name and information off the air, and I will pass along to Rodney. And Rodney says that he'll be more than happy to give you a full subscription to Tighter Insider. So we have got a full bank of callers. So Molly, you tell us which should we go to first?
Well, the first person that called was William.
Okay.
It was the very first one. Right when you said it,
okay,
the phone line started blowing
up. All right,
up.
well, let's go to William here on Jocks 94.5 and 3-Man Front. Do you have an answer?
Yes. I think that Booby was George Booby Nathan, maybe from the Ray Perkins era.
That is correct.
That is correct. Man, the first guess.
Wow.
Looky there.
That's like the first time that the first person has called has gotten it right.
The first person. Absolutely. You are correct. He was out of Mobile, Alabama, and he played at BC Rains High School.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad there's something good about being this old.
Well, there you go, William. Congratulations.
Yeah, William, congratulations. And Rodney tells me that Booby Nathan ended up transferring to Southern Mississippi. So he left Alabama and went to Southern Mississippi. He was a running back. Okay, William, what we're going to do is we're going to put you on hold, and Molly is going to get some information. I'm going to get your phone number, a way that we can contact you. And actually, I'll probably just hand it off to Rodney, and then Rodney will be able to get in touch with you, and he'll get that worked out. William, we appreciate you listening to a 3-Man Front. Hope you have a great day. Just hold on, okay?
That sounds great. You have a great show, and you all have a great day, too.
Thank you so much. Hold on. You're going to talk to Molly off the air, and Molly will get all the pertinent information. So, yeah, and matter of fact, Rodney was texting with me during the commercial break, and Rodney said this might be something that we do every week.
I like that. That's good. That would be that's very nice of Rodney to offer that up. And
Booby Nathan wore number 29 in the for the University of Alabama when he played there as a running back, and then he transferred. He was 6'2", 203 from Mobile, BC Rain High School. I'd never heard of him until about 10 minutes ago.
No, I'm just glad to know that we've had another Booby in the past, and maybe we'll be able to add to that.
The second Booby,
Booby
Jr.
We'll have two Boobies.
Well, that's always preferable, right?
Yeah, I was about to say.
To have two Boobies, part of your football history?
Absolutely.
Notice how I paused there. All the things that Landrum would have fun with.
I know. He's kicking himself right now on the ski slopes that he can't join in on.
I'm sure he's listening.
Oh, obviously. Of course he is.
Absolutely.
All 4 hours.
So we always appreciate Rodney Orr joining the program and enlightening us with information. And that was one that was kind of crazy. Let's go to the text line because we've been jam-packed. Let's go to the Courtesy GMC text line, 205-834-9450.
Yes, and we will go back. A lot of people weighing in on Rodney, but as well as SEC Hoops last night. So somebody chimes in and said, y'all said don't throw cans like Texas did, talking about the Oklahoma game. He said, but don't throw cans like Alabama did because they threw the water bottle in that game, the one game.
They did.
And he also adds WDE, so Auburn fan there. We have, let's see, somebody texting in about Janai Broom. They say, I know Janai Broom reached 2,500 career points last night, and it pains me as an Alabama fan to say this, but congratulations to him. But where's the love for my guy, Mark Sears, who scored 2,680 points in his career? Pretty dang good for a guy who wasn't highly recruited out of high school. Roll Tide. Well, we did talk about that a couple of weeks ago when he became the leading or the active scoring leader in college basketball. But yeah, I mean, Mark Sears has been great, and so has Janai Broom. I know Chad Baker-Mazara got honored. He had his 1,000th career point over the weekend. So a lot of big moments there for both Auburn and Alabama hoops here lately. Let's see. Zach texted in. He says UAB has a big game Sunday. Go Tigers. Okay.
Oh, boy.
Well,
Memphis Tiger fan.
wasn't expecting a Memphis fan.
Let me tell you something. Being a student at UAB and watching Penny Hardaway in college and just the rivalry with Memphis and UAB in basketball, because Gene Bartow was a former coach at Memphis State. He took a Memphis State Tiger team to the Final Four in St. Louis against UCLA and lost to Bill Walton. And, of course, Gene Bartow came to UAB, started the athletics program, and was a Hall of Fame coach. One of his favorite people in the world was Larry Finch, who was a former player, All-American there at Memphis State, who later was a head coach at Memphis. The ties run deep between the city of Memphis. Steve Mitchell, one of the greatest UAB basketball players of all time, he is from the Memphis area. He is now the color analyst with David Crane on the basketball broadcast. So this has always been a very, very good rivalry between the two. Memphis, unfortunately, has the upper hand in regards to the number of wins, but this one should be just a raucous crowd on Sunday at Bartow, and it's going to be a fun atmosphere.
I was about saying, as you shared, almost sold out. So it appears if you do want tickets to the game, you better go ahead and get them.
Yep.
Because I would imagine that place is going to be packed out. So, all right, Molly, you might have a chance to pay things forward here, because earlier in the week, everyone was offering these remedies for Molly because she was feeling a little under the weather.
Let me just, can I be honest?
Yeah.
I don't think she was sick.
Oh, no, I don't either. I mean, I think it was
I really
front, but it was just such a miraculous turnaround.
I never saw her take one pill or any cough. I saw her nothing.
Well, I don't need to take them in the workplace.
I guess that's a fair point.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't know. I don't know if she was. She seems she's okay now.
She is.
Yeah, I'm
she's
feeling
fine
much
now.
better now.
But
Thank
this
you.
is
I really
your
appreciate
chance.
your concern, Pat.
Yeah, he doesn't.
Let me ask you a question.
What?
Were any of your other teammates texting you, asking you how you were doing?
No. Pat was the only one that cared.
Okay, say boom. There you go.
Well, I
Drop
was
the mic.
stranded on the side of the road. So
But I say Conrad has an excuse. Landrum, he's a lost cause.
There's no excuse
No.
for Conrad. He doesn't care about anybody but himself.
Well, that's
Bucky.
obviously. But no, so somebody asked Molly, what did you do to get your voice back so quickly? It's Austin who texted and he says, my wife has had a similar thing that you had, I think, and she hasn't had her voice since Sunday.
So I took Afrin every night. Well, not every night. I started Afrin on Tuesday because I started feeling bad Friday, like kind of Friday afternoon. I mean, Pat was here. Conrad, you weren't, but Pat, you were here. And then Sunday was really the first day I started to lose my voice just from coughing a lot, my throat really hurting. And then Tuesday, I started taking Afrin and it helped, but I only would take it at night. So yeah, that's my remedy.
Hey, I'll say this: Afrin is great. Just can't take it too much.
No, you gotta
So
be
you
careful
did not
with
do
it.
the moonshine that was
I did
prescribed by
not.
the listeners.
No
I was
rock
a-
candy.
No, I was a little scared to do that. I did drink some tea though, some green tea in the mornings, and that also helped.
Is that what they're calling it nowadays?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's code.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, it's code. Code for something else.
Let's see. BB's chiming in about the games last night. She said, I saw Oklahoma got fouled with 1.9 seconds on the clock. Did they get screwed out of a chance to tie or win? It didn't look right to me. And I'm assuming you're talking about, it was Fears, I think, who was driving to the
going
basket.
To the basket. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it was one of those you could call it, you couldn't call it one way or the other. But they ultimately didn't call it. But I mean, I saw a similar thing, BB, especially when they showed the replay. There were definitely some hands on him that were not on the ball, but there's a lot of those in every basketball game. If we're being honest here. Let's see. Somebody else chiming in. Can you imagine an IBOB national championship? It would be the biggest game in the history of college basketball. I have to go back over it would be a big one. And for the state of Alabama, it would certainly be the biggest game.
Just think
in
about
college
Alabama and Auburn
basketball
playing
history.
twice in the regular season. They could play again in Nashville and then turn around and play for potentially like a Final Four, a national championship.
Yeah, that would be remarkable. We'll see how this next matchup goes. But yeah, fingers crossed that we get at least 3 total IBOBs this season.
Well, if you're looking for a place to check out all the college basketball action we got this weekend, you need to go to Big Whiskey's because they are the great place for food of all varieties with a full menu ranging from apps, salads, burgers to steaks. Their bar features unique cocktails, over 120 whiskeys, including whiskey on tap, and plenty of screens, like I said, to catch all the games all weekend long. They also offer different food and drink specials each day of the week. They have happy hour, and the kitchen is open late every night. So go check them out in the Stadium Trace Village off Highway 150 near the Hoover Met.
So the college football playoff managers met on Tuesday in Dallas. A story just came out a few moments ago that there might be a compromise for 2025. I'll tell you all about it next on Three Man Front. It is 11:35, Jocks 94.5. Normally at 11:45 on Thursdays, Rob Pate joins the program. You know, he's a doctor.
He's a entrepreneur, I thought.
He is an entrepreneur, and he's also one of the top doctors when it comes to eye care in the Southeast. And he is got 3 more patients left, and he is behind, and he will not be able to join us today. So,
Well, I would say that eye care is more important than
absolutely.
than talking about Auburn basketball, as much as I'm sure he would love to do that. But
Yes, so we hope to catch up with Rob next week, and that's his day job.
well, and next week it'll be perfect because we'll get to start previewing the second round
The IBOB.
of the IBOB.
Yep, absolutely. So I said this before we went to commercial break. There was not a lot of news coming out of the Tuesday meeting of the college football playoff managers. Well, Yahoo Sports is reporting that the commissioners on Tuesday examined a financial model that may serve as a compromise in changing the 2025 playoff format to a straight seeding structure. Now, as you know, you have to have a unanimous decision of all the conference commissioners and the athletics director at Notre Dame. Nothing was voted on, but there seems to be a potential of a financial compromise as it was discussed on Tuesday amongst the 11-member group. And what they're discussing is even if you don't get a first-round bye, the monies would equal out the same. So basically they're saying if you're a group of 5 conference and you're worried about losing your money by not having an opportunity to get an extra round of playoff money, the SEC and the Big Ten may be willing to spot you some dough. I'm just cutting it down to the brass tacks. That's what it sounds like.
Well, we're
me.
a high integrity conference and we want what's best for the sport overall.
Yes, absolutely. So in the current 12-team format, the top 4 seeds, the first round byes, they are served as the 4 highest ranked conference champions. Each of those teams automatically earn $8 million because you get 4 for going and playing in the first round. But if you get a bye, you automatically get $8 million because you technically are on to the next round of the playoffs. So under the discussion is the possibility of the 4 highest ranked conference champions continuing to earn the additional revenue despite not receiving a top 4 seed or a first round bye. The question is that going to be enough to sway the other conferences, the Mountain West and the other conferences like that?
Yeah.
Would they be willing to take that deal moving forward? So an interesting spin to the conversation that took place in Dallas.
What if we just make Notre Dame take all their winnings and split it up that way, and we just take the money from them since they're profiting off of this?
I'm sure they would be all for that.
So much more. Well, and it's a punishment of, hey, well, you didn't want to join a conference. But no, I like this. I think if this is what you need to do to
Just
get a
get
deal
it
done for
done.
25, yes, just make the small sacrifice for 1 year. Again, keep them happy. And then for 2026 and beyond, that's when you really flex the muscles and you say, we're doing this our way. We'll play ball with you for 2025. We'll make everyone happy. But we're going to start getting our way here soon. So no, I mean, I think if money was the concern for the ACC Big 12 Group of 5 in terms of the straight seeding format, this should take care of that. And I applaud the Big 10 and SEC for being willing to make that sacrifice, because I think that is in the best interest of the playoff as a whole for this upcoming year.
Under the playoffs' current performance-based distribution model, each team earns $4 million for qualifying, another $4 million for playing in the quarterfinals, another $6 million for advancing in the semifinals, and $6 million more for competing in the title game. So basically the SEC and the Big Ten would find a way to give those other conferences an opportunity to earn the money, whether you got that first round bye or not. Heather Dinich was on the Paul Feinbaum show yesterday. This is what she had to say about what took place in Dallas.
The people in that room are towing a very fine line between doing what's best for college football and making it something the fans can understand, and also taking care of their constituents, right? This is politics. This is how it works. Do you do it for the greater good? How do you balance keeping your athletic directors, university presidents, and everyone in your own conference happy? Is $4 million for 1 more season worth it? I don't know the answer to that question. Those commissioners have to decide that, and they also have to decide if this is something that they want to do.
There you go. That was Heather Dinich. She was there in Grapevine Falls, Texas, at the hotel where the meeting was taking place of the CFP managers. It was interesting because Jim Phillips was really the only one that really spoke. Petiti, Sankey, Yormark did not speak to the media. Phillips did. You had General Clark. He met with members of the media. They said that they need to get more information before they made a decision on 2025. But I think when it's all said and done, if somebody can stroke a check to whatever those conferences potentially could forfeit because of a straight seeding model, I think for 2025, you could have some movement.
Yeah, and I mean, it's possible that you would have, let's say, 2 Big Ten and 2 SEC teams in the top 4, so you would be taking a hit there. But I mean, would it not be kind of comical if, this got agreed to, and then you had your Final Four this next year, and it was, let's say, Ohio State, Georgia, Clemson, and I don't know, somebody out of the Big 12, pick a team from the Big 12. And then at that point, you made the agreement to appease everybody, but you're not taking the financial hit from it because it still worked out the way it is and they got the money that they would have gotten anyways. So, I mean, like Dinich said, is $4 million that big of a deal for the SEC and the Big 10? I would think not, but, again, that's up to Sankey and Petiti to decide that. But it seems like this is a relatively pain-free solution for 2025 that not only the conferences can agree with, but the fans can be happy about and ultimately, as I said, I think be the best outcome for this situation.
I mean, we're just talking about straight seating here. I mean, we're not trying to eliminate access.
No, be good enough and you'll still get it.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I know some folks are going to say, well, that's not fair about what the SEC and the Big Ten is trying to do. No, if you're going to have a committee and you're going to make these people rank and go whatever formula that they want to talk about behind closed doors, then just take the 12, take the 14, take the 16, whatever ranking you want to do, and that's who's playing in the tournament. Period. That's what happens in the FCS.
Yep.
They come up with the seating. There it is. Go play football. I don't know why we're making this so difficult in regards to the college football playoff, in regards to the FBS.
Because we want to be like the NFL and give, a higher seed to the division champions or the conference champions or.
Well, I mean, you could still do that,
whatever.
But I mean, just take these straight seeding.
Yeah. No,
and just go that direction. But so we'll see if that financial compromise is enough to make those folks happy enough to sign off on a potential change in 2025. More three-man front here on Jocks 94.5. So the University of Alabama football program, they have released their practice dates and information. You know, it all starts on Monday as Coach DeBoer will meet with the media. Practice will be at 8:30 on Monday morning, and then Coach DeBoer will meet with the media at 10:45. So we'll get to hear Coach DeBoer's thoughts on the upcoming spring. So they will be practicing throughout the month of March and April. And then, of course, there will be the wonderful A-Day activities coming up in April. So Alabama football is ready to rock and roll starting on Monday. If you're listening to the show yesterday afternoon, and whether you follow Barstool Sports or I think Pat McAfee even talked about it yesterday, the topic of discussion on Our Worst Thing I've Seen by Conrad had to deal with a situation developing at the University of Mississippi in the fraternity and sorority situation. Well, I think we've got an update. This is today's Worst Thing I've Seen.
Yeah, so if you missed the story yesterday, you can go check it out on the podcast section. You can also just go and Google search Ole Miss, honestly, and it's going to be one of the first things that pops up because it's gone so viral. But if you missed it, generally the gist of it was a couple nights ago, there was a rumor spreading with a lot of different accounts from different people at Ole Miss, whether it's current students, former students, people that are friends of a certain family. And the rumor was essentially that there was a sorority girl who cheated on her boyfriend with the boyfriend's dad. And obviously, when you hear a story like that, it's going to spread like wildfire. So we shared a little bit about that story yesterday, just kind of letting you know, hey, yeah, this was a big deal in SEC conversations. This is what the situation appears to be. And I will give credit to the Auburn student section. I did not hear
I didn't either.
them go and take this out of hand last night during the basketball game. So I thought that was great. But we now have a response to the situation from the family.
Now, before you read that response, just a reminder for those that may not know what we're talking about. In a reported multiple stories yesterday that the girlfriend was babysitting the younger sibling of her boyfriend, correct?
Yeah, she was babysitting her boyfriend's younger sibling, and then the dad she thought that he was going to give her a ride home or something, and they ended up going to dinner and having drinks, and then story.
Okay.
Yes. So this is, and again, all of that stuff, this is Twitter hearsay. We're talking about screenshots from group messages, social media captions, all these different things that have been collected. And so again, this is all alleged information, but we do now have a response from the Cornett family.
All right, so wait a second. So it's all alleged, but the family has decided that they need to come out with a statement.
Correct. And this is a lengthy one, so I'm going to read as much of this as I can, but I mean, seriously, we'd be here
now,
for
this is
10
from
minutes.
a reputable source, right?
This is from the family directly.
Okay.
They posted this on social media.
Okay.
So this is... So
the Cornetts?
Yeah, so the person posting the story is...
No, wait, the girl's Cornett, right?
Correct. The girlfriend, her name is Mary Kate Cornett.
Okay.
So this is her statement and is also another statement from the family as a whole. All right. So this is the statement. I don't know if this was posted originally by the mother or father of the family, but it reads...
Of the girlfriend.
Of the girlfriend, correct.
Okay.
This is all the girlfriend's family. So it says, quote, "By now, some of you know my daughter, Mary Kate Cornett, has been the subject of a totally and categorically false, malicious, organized, and defamatory cyber attack. She has been publicly doxxed, and our family has been forced to take protective measures to ensure her safety. We have filed police reports with local law enforcement in Oxford and the University of Mississippi campus police. The viral and interstate nature of these false attacks even led Congressman Wesley Hunt's office and the FBI to reach out to our family today to join the efforts to find those responsible. Further, I have engaged a highly capable forensic data private investigation team to find the perpetrators. At this stage, we suspect this is some sort of fraternity prank that has mushroomed out of control. I refuse to let my family be targeted and fully committed to pursuing all criminal and civil actions available. To those responsible, we will find you. All right. We now go to the official statement of the daughter, Mary Kate Cornett. Quote, "Hello, this is Mary Kate Cornett. I'm a student and member of the Kappa Delta sorority at the University of Mississippi. I have been the victim of a deliberate and coordinated cyber attack spreading categorically false and defamatory information. Partially and wholly edited screenshots, fake AI-generated videos, and manipulated photographs have been promoted by irresponsible social media participants and amplified by thousands of fake accounts, the burner accounts. Not to be outdone by the bots, irresponsible independent social media influencers with apparent ties to Barstool and even major public figures such as Pat McAfee and Antonio Brown have shared these utter and complete lies with zero interest in the truth, but instead spreading outlandish conjecture. No one affiliated with these organizations ever reached out to us for comment. Most alarmingly, my personal contact information has been doxed and illegally shared publicly, putting my own personal safety at risk. I have received thousands of harassing calls and texts of a sick and demented nature, some of which suggest I even take my own life. The unwanted attention garnered here rose to the #1 trending topic on X in the United States and even associated me with an apparent meme coin using my name, image, and likeness without my permission. To be clear, we have zero affiliation with this scam and have not participated nor know anyone who has benefited in any capacity of it whatsoever. The viral nature of these wholly untrue allegations have forced me to retain legal counsel, forensic data investigators, and seek alternative education/living arrangements while we find those responsible for these utterly false accusations, which we will. We have filed reports with the University of Mississippi campus police, local police, and the FBI. Rest assured, all criminal charges and civil remedies will be pursued vigorously." It goes on again to say, she has condolences for other people who have suffered cyber attacks and situations of this nature. But that is your official statement from the Cornett family and from Mary Kate Cornett herself, allegedly the girlfriend who was the topic of conversation of this viral story.
Well, I was telling you during a commercial break. So last night on many different social media platforms, I saw clips from these shows that the family and she just mentioned in those statements, and been doing this for a minute. And I was shocked that they went to the level that they did in some of the discussion and naming of names. We never mentioned anyone's name on this program yesterday.
No, and that was very intentional.
Yeah, we did that purposely because in this day and age, you just never know if this stuff is just completely fabricated or if there's any legitimacy. If it's the Associated Press reporting something, that's a completely different animal in which you're talking about. But now we purposely, when we talked about it yesterday, we did not give any names whatsoever. We said these were alleged situations that's being discussed. But watching these other shows last night.
Yeah, no, they didn't hold back.
No, they didn't.
I was shocked. And so by them mentioning the Barstools and the Pat McAfees, because they most certainly, I don't think McAfee had a whole segment. It was just a kind of a snide remark in regards to Ole Miss. And
yeah, and Antonio Brown made some post on social media, which if you are familiar with his post on social media, you can probably guess the route that went. But ultimately, and to be honest, we kind of debated here internally, do we even go down this route? Do we share it? And that's why it was relegated to the worst thing that I've seen, because it was so popular in SEC circles that we felt like we needed to discuss it or at least mention it because, we keep track of this stuff,
it was
like everyone
dominating
else.
The topics on Tuesday night.
It's
we had a lot
of trending topic.
Yeah, we had a lot of great basketball, but everybody in the Southeastern Conference wanted to talk about this crazy rumor that was supposedly happening in Oxford.
Just what a horrible thing to do to somebody. This poor girl. She's what, 19, 20, 21?
Yeah, I would imagine somewhere in there. And obviously
Sick
the
joke.
nature of the story, like anytime you hear of a situation like that, it's going to turn people's heads and get people talking. But again, with no legitimate evidence or not, her or someone in the family acknowledging, hey, yeah, this is what happened. It was a messy situation, but this is what happened. We're trying to move on as a family. That hasn't happened. So, as far as we know, all of this stuff that they said in their statement is true. This is a fraternity prank or someone on social media taking things too far. But if we were going to share the story yesterday, we felt it was necessary to share the update today and share the family side of things. And, if it progresses any further, we will keep you up to date. But that is the latest from the Cornett family on the Ole Miss Twitter drama from Tuesday night.
Unbelievable. We're halfway home on this Thursday. Hope you'll keep us tuned in for the next 2 hours. We'll take you up to the Paul Feinbaum Show. We will go to Rocky Top coming up in the 12 o'clock hour. Vince Ferraro is going to join the program as we'll get a preview of the big game coming up between Alabama and Tennessee and other SEC basketball conversation. This is Jocks 94.5's three-man front. Keep it tuned right here. It is 12 noon. Welcome back in. This is three-man front on Jocks 94.5, the ump up in Huntsville, Jocks 740 in the capital city of Montgomery, Alabama. You can always watch us on YouTube. You can follow along audio-wise, Jocks 94.5 app. You can download that, listen to us anywhere in the world that you can get internet access. So that is a wonderful tool to have. A lot of basketball talk today in regards to Auburn's big win last night, 106-76 against the Ole Miss Rebels. Janai Broome and Chad Baker-Mazara, they set the tone early in that game in the first half. They had a combined 28 points at halftime. Auburn was 6 of 8. Deadly accuracy in the first half from the three-point line. Broome ends up with 24 points, grabbed 9 rebounds. Did not get that double-double, but how about a season-high 22 points for Chad Baker-Mazara? He had a stomach bug 24 hours prior to the game. He had been hooked up to IVs. And, man, he got in his zone and just did an incredible job for Auburn. So the Tigers, they maintain a 2-game lead in the SEC with 3 games to play. They have now clinched a double bye heading to Nashville, and they're trying to wrap up a regular season championship as they head to Rupp Arena. We talked to Nick Roush from Kentucky Sports Radio at 10:30. He joined the program as he gave us a preview of the big game coming up at Rupp Arena. If you missed that interview, you can download the 3-Man Front podcast, and you can hear what he had to say there. We will go to Rocky Top at 12:30. We will talk to Vince Farrar from our sister station, 99.1 The Sports Animal in Knoxville. He will join the show as number 6 Alabama will be taking on number 5 Tennessee. How about Alabama? Season high, 111 points on Tuesday. It was the 8th time Alabama scored more than 100 points. It was the Tide's 10th quad 1 win. That is only number 2 behind the Auburn Tigers in that category. Alabama now 23-5, 12-3 in the SEC. Some sad news today to pass along. As Oscar-winning actor Gene Hackman, his wife and their dog were found dead in different rooms in their Santa Fe home in New Mexico. And they had apparently, according to police, been dead for some time.
And there was no foul play suspected based on the report that I saw, at least.
Hackman, 95, was found dead Wednesday in a mudroom, and his 63-year-old wife was found dead in a bathroom next to a space heater. Santa Fe County Sheriff's officers, detectives, they wrote in a search warrant, there was an open prescription bottle and pills scattered on a countertop near Gene Hackman's wife.
Mm.
So when you think about Gene Hackman, he was an Oscar-winning actor, and I want to take you back to one of his big roles in Hoosiers. Remember, he portrayed Coach Norman Dale. This is what it sounded like when Coach Norman Dale, portrayed by Gene Hackman, gave one of his famous speeches from Hoosiers.
There's a tradition in tournament play to not talk about the next step until you've climbed the one in front of you. I'm sure going to the state finals is beyond your wildest dreams, so let's just keep it right there. Forget about the crowds, the size of the school, their fancy uniforms, and remember what got you here. Focus on the fundamentals that we've gone over time and time again. And most important, don't get caught up thinking about winning or losing this game. If you put your effort and concentration into playing to your potential, to be the best that you can be, I don't care what the scoreboard says at the end of the game, in my book, we're going to be winners.
That was Coach Norman Dale, portrayed by Gene Hackman as he was talking to his Hickory Huskers. That was the name of the team. One of his other famous roles was Captain Frank Ramsey from the movie Crimson Tide. And I remember when this movie came out, and we played this clip on Feinbaum a good bit, but this was at the beginning of the movie. Here is Captain Frank Ramsey.
We constitute the front line and the last line of defense. I expect and demand your very best. Anything less, you should have joined the Air Force. This might be our Commander-in-Chief's Navy, but this is my boat. And all I ask is that you keep up with me. And if you can't, that strange sensation you'll be feeling in the seat of your pants will be my boot in your ass.
Mr. Cobb?
Yes, sir.
You're aware of the name of this ship, aren't you, Mr. Cobb?
Very aware, sir.
It bears a proud name, doesn't it, Mr. Cobb?
Very proud, sir.
It represents fine people.
Very fine people, sir.
Who live in a fine, outstanding state.
Outstanding, sir.
In the greatest country in the entire world.
In the entire world, sir.
And what is that name, Mr. Cobb?
Alabama, sir.
And what do we say? Go, Bama!
Roll Tide!
Chief of the boat, dismiss the crew.
Dismiss the crew. Aye, aye, sir.
That is Captain Frank Ramsey, one of many, many roles that Gene Hackman played. He was found dead on Wednesday. He was 95 years old. And so Gene Hackman, Academy Award-winning actor, no longer with us. So he had a lot of really great roles. And I know you, Molly, watched Hoosiers last year, part of your summer movie series.
Yeah, Molly's Movie Minute.
Yep.
And that was until I watched Shawshank, that was my favorite movie. It was my only movie I gave a 5-star.
Yep.
And it's still to this day one of my favorite movies.
And that was one of the first movies that you watched in the.
It was early in the list because
Yeah.
I watched it I think when the tournament started.
Mm-hmm.
So
you sure did. So just a horrible story coming out of Santa Fe, New Mexico, with actor Gene Hackman.
Yeah, I was a big fan of him. I saw a movie I hadn't seen until a couple years ago was Unforgiven, the Clint Eastwood movie. He was excellent at that, as well as the other ones that we shared. Yeah, just a great actor, and sad to see him go at the age of 95.
Yes. So he is no longer with us. Alabama, will start spring practice coming up on Monday. We'll have a full updates on that as we start next week. But basketball has been the major topic of discussion as we get ready for postseason basketball. And there's been a story that has been percolating about a possible Big East ACC merger. Front Office Sports is mentioning the fact that former Duke's men's basketball coach Mike Krzyzewski and current St. John's coach Rick Pitino, they have both recently suggested a conference merger between the Big East and the ACC.
Okay.
Now, last weekend, Big East Commissioner Val Ackerman, she addressed the concept, saying she appreciated the comments from the two former coaches, and she, as the commissioner of the Big East Conference, is open to that conversation.
I'm just counting up here. So it would look like you would have 30 teams in a conference for basketball if you were to combine the two leagues.
Ackerman, who is the commissioner of the Big East, she said she has great respect for ACC Commissioner Jim Phillips and that conversations have taken place about basketball as football interests continue to dominate much of the headlines and much of the bandwidth of the leagues that we consider peer conferences. Now, a representative of the Atlantic Coast Conference asked for comment by Front Office Sports. They denied and said they would not have a comment. Now, the Big East has only one FBS football playing member, and that is UConn.
Mm-hmm.
The last time the league had several FBS football playing schools, it became a victim of conference realignment. If you remember back in 2013, they lost Syracuse to the ACC. In order for a merger to take place between the ACC and the Big East before 2036, all four media partners, along with the two conferences, would likely have to unravel their current contracts and engineer a new one. It's a much more complicated process than simply adding an expansion team to an existing deal. But I find it interesting, Conrad, that according to Front Office Sports, that the Big East commissioner did not say that that was an outlandish idea and we would not consider it. She said she was open for conversation.
Yeah, it's certainly an interesting idea. I mean, when you imagine obviously what you have in the ACC with the Dukes and the North Carolinas and Louisvilles, and I know Syracuse isn't great right now, but their history, and you add in UConn and St. John's and what they're doing right now under Pitino and Creighton and Marquette and some of these other schools. I mean, I'm all for it, right? Because I think the Big East, for what it is, I know UConn's kind of ruled the roost for the last couple of years, but I think this would be mutually beneficial in the sense that the ACC, let's be honest, their level of competition is not what it has been in the past here lately, and especially this year. And now if you're the Big East, you could benefit from playing in some bigger markets, playing in front of some bigger crowds, and getting to be a part of things there for the ACC. So yeah, it'd be interesting, to see how it worked, I guess, outside of basketball, if that's something they wanted to explore. But at least just strictly talking basketball, and there's 11 teams in the Big East, so you'd have 29. So that's kind of an odd number there that you would have between the two conferences combined. But hey, I'm all for it. I think it could be mutually beneficial to both sides, or that's the way I see it.
Yeah, it certainly would. And we all know that UConn has been flirting with potentially the Big 12 conference.
Yes.
And the hang up with them joining the Big 12 conference is the Big 12 conference doesn't want UConn football. Oh, they would love to have UConn basketball, but they are not interested in taking the Huskies when it comes to football.
Did you see Dan Hurley's latest great comment last night?
I did. He misinterpreted something that one of the media members had asked him. They were actually asking him about the press, the defensive press of the opposing team, and he thought that they were asking him about how the press has been treating
Like
him.
the media.
Yeah.
Yes.
And he said not very nice things about them.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, he was.
Good on the media members, though, because you could hear him kind of chuckle in the background. And he was like, oh, I didn't understand the question, but I'd be like,
Yeah, he immediately.
well,
started,
Dan, thanks for telling us how you really feel about us, man.
Yeah, he immediately started
Appreciate
attacking
that.
the media as opposed to hearing the question.
Yeah.
Which had nothing to do with how the media was treating you, Dan. It was how the team reacts to press coverage.
No, it's all about him. He's the best coach in the sport, Pat, remember?
So, Molly, I just got a press release, and I don't think you've seen this yet, but I want to congratulate you because your alma mater has been christened.
They're building a statue?
No, they've been christened a champion.
Oh.
They a champion of life like Butch Jones in Tennessee back in the day?
So the Nebraska has been named the winner of the inaugural 2024-25 Bowl Season Team Challenge.
Oh, very cool.
Very prestigious honor.
Huge.
I'm just reading the press release. I did not write this. I'm just reading it to you, Molly.
Molly, did you write this?
So you can
No.
swell with pride. The Nebraska Cornhuskers and their dedicated fan base have made history as the first ever winners of the Bowl Season Team Challenge. Their postseason success did not end with a 2015 victory over Boston College in the Bad Boy Motors Pinstripe Bowl. The Huskers' remarkable performance on and off the field secured them as the inaugural Team Challenge champions, making a major milestone in bowl season history.
It's a great day to be a Husker.
Great job, Molly.
Thank you, guys.
Great job.
Thank you. We need it.
Y'all did great.
Now,
Thank
in
you.
winning
Go
the Bowl
Red.
Season Team Challenge, Nebraska accomplished all three components of every other FBS institution: on-field success,
Absolutely.
community service.
Love it.
The entire Nebraska team decorated cards for the children at the Memorial Sloan Kettering's Pediatric Cancer Center.
Oh.
The day before the game, a smaller group of players and staff, including University President, is it Cold or Gold? President Gold?
Yeah.
Is that who runs the university? Delivered the cards and beanies and spent the afternoon sharing holiday cheer and Big Red spirit with the patients.
That's so sweet.
And they
There's
also
no
had
place like Nebraska.
fan engagement. Lastly, the bowl season pick'em game was launched this year, allowing fans to predict the winners of the 47 postseason football games. And those that use certain hashtags and were Nebraska fans, they had the best mark in the bowl season challenge.
I love it.
Great job.
Hey, if there's one thing that Nebraska has, it's great fans.
I mean, look, they like did it up big time.
Oh, there's a graphic and everything?
Oh, yay. We get a graphic.
Is that a college football playoff bracket at the top?
Next year?
Matter of fact, it is. Most certainly is. Well, Molly, I am sending this to you now because I know that you will want to send it to the fancy laser printer over in the sales office.
I was about to say, can we get it
that picture will
laminated
be going
for you?
up in my office.
Yes, and that you will be able to. So just like Butch Jones had the Champions of Life at the University of Tennessee, now you have the Bowl Season Challenge Championship.
I'll take it. Go Big Red.
We'll get you a trash can too, and you'll be just like Tennessee. It'll be great.
No, I want a t-shirt too.
Just remember, brick by brick.
Brick by brick. Day by day.
Butch Jones, still at Arkansas State. Good for him.
Yeah. Remember that time he was at Alabama?
Do remember that.
That was fun.
Yep, he was in the shadows of Nick Saban on the sideline. He was pretty happy when Alabama beat Tennessee.
Yeah. Yeah. That was...
He was very quick to be on social media smoking the old cigar.
Oh, that was such a fun time.
Oh, back when Alabama would beat Tennessee?
Yeah.
Or back when Alabama would beat anybody?
Ooh.
Yeah.
They just could not get over the teams from Tennessee this last year.
No, they couldn't.
Vandy and Tennessee.
No, but that changes on Saturday in Rocky Top, Pat. I hope.
I hope. Yeah. More three-man front. This is Jocks 94.5. So, after facing the toughest non-conference schedule in program history, I'm talking about the Auburn basketball team, they're setting up for another incredible schedule for 2025-2026. The Auburn Tiger basketball team just announced moments ago that they have set a home-and-home series with the University of Arizona. They're going to head to Tucson, Arizona on December 6th, followed by a return to Auburn the next year. A date is yet to be determined. So Arizona is now added to an Auburn non-conference slate that will include a trip to Purdue in Indianapolis, a matchup with Houston and Birmingham, plus they're going to play in the Players Era Men's Championship in Las Vegas. That tournament is going to feature Alabama, Creighton, Houston, Notre Dame, Oregon, Rutgers, San Diego State, Texas A&M, Baylor, Gonzaga, Iowa State, Kansas, Michigan State, St. Joseph, St. John's, and Syracuse.
Man.
That's quite a tournament,
That's
folks.
fun.
Uh-huh. Is that the NCAA tournament?
That's pretty much going to be most of the field. But yeah, so Auburn already, it's paid dividends this year with their incredible schedule. And so Bruce Pearl is not letting up at all with that announcement, as Arizona for the next 2 years will be an opponent of the Auburn Tigers.
Well, Tucson is no Tempe.
That is correct.
But we still have some cold weather that could be hanging around, so schedule your system checkup now from a Train Comfort Specialist. Train has been recognized for 10 consecutive years as America's most trusted HVAC brand and our exclusive home comfort partners here at Jock. So go and visit train.com to find a comfort specialist near you.
1-800-239-WJOX. We got a few minutes before we're going to go to Rocky Top and get a preview of Alabama, Tennessee. Let's go to Miles. He joins us here on Three Man Front.
Hello.
Hey,
I
Miles.
hope everyone's doing well today.
We
Enjoying
are.
the show.
Thank you.
Regarding the position of the ACC and the Big 12 and Jim Phillips' comments, I sense not only a little hypocrisy, but really a contradiction here. And correct me if I'm wrong. I know that does every conference, the automatic four conference champions,
Power
ACC,
four.
Big 12, SEC, Power Four, thank you. They're automatically, if you're a champion of one of those conferences, you're going to get in the playoff, correct? Automatically. Or is it only the top four?
No, well, it is technically the top four, but
okay.
Yeah.
That is a form of automatic qualification in and of itself. So if the Big 12 and the ACC have a problem with the SEC and the Big 10 getting four, if their problem is automatic qualification based off what conference a team is in, then they should be wholeheartedly against, if they're being unilateral, they should be wholeheartedly against any champion of any conference getting admission into a playoff simply because of the conference they're in.
I can't disagree.
I mean, that's a contradiction in terms. I mean, I just want to make sure I'm
you're
out of bounds there.
No, you're reading it absolutely right. The Big Ten and the SEC, they just want, if it's 12, 14, 16, doesn't matter. Whatever the rankings are, that's how you line up and play.
Yep.
And there's and they would love to have a system to where there's no buys. It's just straight off. You play just like you would play the NCAA basketball tournament, where those 1-16 games are not very fun to watch, but you know what? The one still has to suit up and play.
Right. I appreciate that. And let me a quick note about Gene Hackman,
Yes.
who is one of the greatest performers we're ever going to see. I don't know if you've seen The French Connection.
Yes, I have.
It's a historic film. A little note about that film. When they were filming the famous car chase scene, they actually had undercover cops who would go throughout New York and temporarily stop traffic so they could film that.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they actually veered into real traffic, and some of those wrecks are real.
Oh, wow.
When they were about to film the scene, the director, Ralph Friedkin, who also directed The Exorcist, he had a cameraman in the back of the car, and he knew what was about to happen, or at least somewhat. And he asked the cameraman, "Do you have a family?" And the guy said, "Yes." He said, "Well, you're not filming this." And the director got in the back of the car and filmed the scene.
That's
from
amazing.
that angle.
That is amazing. Doesn't happen like that anymore, does it?
No. The greatest era of film was 68 to 84, much of which is before I was born, but I still enjoy him. You'll never see a run like that.
No, you're right. Miles, we appreciate you listening. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening. 1-800-239-WJOX. The Courtesy GMC text line is also open. Another way that you can communicate with the show, Conrad, and I understand folks are filling the text line up.
Absolutely. Y'all have been great texting in today. We'll get to as many of them as we can here. So we have somebody chiming in about Alabama and Auburn basketball, and they predict that both Alabama and Auburn will go 1-2 in their last 3 games. I would be interested then to know which one or who you think is going to beat the other one, because obviously one of them has to win the final game of the regular season. But somebody texting in, they say Auburn and Alabama will both go 1-2 in their final 3 games of the season. That would be a bit of a surprise, I think, for both of those sides. Let's see. We have David from Coleman. He chimes in. He asks, can we put UConn as an 8 or 9 seed in Auburn's side of the bracket? That way Auburn can shut Dan Hurley up in the second round.
God, that would be so awesome.
He is the most hated coach and so arrogant. Let's see what he can do since he's the best coach and likes to tease fans at opposing arenas. Yeah, he's done a great job the last couple of years, but this year he's mediocre at best.
It would just be incredible seeing the post-game press conference after Auburn beat them by 30 points in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, I don't think I don't think the Lakers are having any regrets right now because they're doing really well, but I do wonder if Dan Hurley's kind of looking at that situation now with LeBron and Luka and going, man, maybe that wasn't maybe I should have struck while the iron was hot, but it is what it is. Let's see. We have some people. Okay, these are people trying to guess who the booby was, the second booby for Rodney Orr's trivia question. Let's see. Evan texted in. He says, I have a great NIL ideal for Callie's Love Stuff. This Saturday, come and meet Booby Feaster from 9 to 12. Oh, Jake, I can't read that one, but that one's good. That one is good.
Landrum would read them.
Yeah, I'm not going to. I'd get in trouble for that one. Let's see. Somebody text in. He says, guys, it's Thursdays. We need to be talking about the Booby Feaster content tomorrow. Well,
that is true.
Unfortunately, the news came out. Let's see. Okay, well, we got, people chiming in about the worst thing I've seen. We're going to stay away from that. Let's see. Somebody says, how about a little love for the UNA Lions for winning the ASUN regular season title last night? That's from Gavin. He says, roar damn. So I'm guessing he's a UNA fan and an Auburn Tiger fan, maybe. Let's see. We have somebody texting in. They say UAB's accomplished more in one season in the AAC than Memphis has ever in that conference. Go Blazers. It's going to be a big one coming up at Bartow Arena Sunday at 3 o'clock. You can hear it here on the Jocks family of networks. Let's see. Somebody says we can't keep calling it IBOB for the Auburn-Alabama matchup. And we did a couple of weeks ago. We had a lot of suggestions. What did we have? The Dixieland Classic or something like that. We had a lot of great suggestions that came in a couple of weeks ago. So we have tried to change the narrative, but it's so easy to say. Let's see. Somebody chiming in saying, great job, guys. Appreciate the way that y'all handled the worst thing that I've seen. Y'all handled that with class. Well, thank you. We tried to share the information because it was such a viral story, but obviously a way you need to go around it. Okay. Somebody has a problem that with the worst thing I've seen, we didn't touch on something more serious. Okay. Well, that's sorry. Kind of meant to be a fun segment at times. Let's see. People weighing in about the loss of Gene Hackman. A lot of people sharing their thoughts. Charmaine from Hoover says, my favorite Gene Hackman role was as Lex Luthor in the 1970s Superman movies. He was great in those. I've seen the original, or I guess the 1978 Superman. Let's see. Bug Guy, he texted in. He says, Auburn's going to get matched up with UConn in the second round. It's going to be up to Bruce to end UConn's reign as back-to-back national champs. A lot of people wanting to see Auburn versus UConn in the first weekend of the tournament. Let's see. Josh in Huntsville says, oh, Nebraska won that cup. Well, there goes my parlay. If you have a parlay on the, what was that cup, Pat? The
bowl cup.
The good effort cup or something like that?
The bowl season challenge cup of excellence.
Yeah. Sorry.
Right.
Sorry, Josh in Huntsville. Okay. Brandon texted in. You would know this, Pat. This is a random question. Do any of y'all know, does Hewitt Trustful have a live mascot? Do you have a live Husky mascot?
We do not.
You working on that?
That needs to change.
Well, you're on the sidelines. Make it happen.
I'll see what I can do.
You carry more weight around there than I do.
That's what I've heard. Let's see. Somebody chiming in. Oh, they're just sending strays at Nebraska. Nebraska basketball scores less points in their entire games than Alabama in the first and second half against Mississippi State.
Yeah, Molly.
I mean, he's not wrong.
That was true the other night. They
Yeah, it
scored,
was
what,
true.
49, 46?
Not even. Yeah, it was like 46.
Something like that.
It was the worst game I've ever seen.
Well, we're going to go up to Rocky Top, Tennessee, and hear from Vince Ferrara as we will get a preview of the big game coming up between Tennessee and Alabama. That's next on Three Man Front. Well, Alabama fans are hoping not to hear a lot of that on Saturday as they head up to Knoxville, Tennessee to face off with the excellent Tennessee Volunteers basketball program as both Alabama and Tennessee trying to vie for that one line in the upcoming NCAA tournament. And let's talk about that Tennessee basketball program. Vince Ferrara is going to join us now, Sports Talk co-host up on our sister station, 99.1 The Sports Animal in Knoxville and K-Town. Hey, Vince, what's going on, man? Hope you're doing well on this Thursday.
What's up, guys? I am, because we're in the 60s, the sun is out, and ahead of more cold weather. So at least we got out of the cold spell for a little bit. So thankful for that. And, but I think it'll be cold just in time for Alabama to come into town on Saturday.
Oh, yeah, it should be a go. So let's start with this Tennessee basketball season because undoubtedly Tennessee, the best defense in the SEC, one of the best defenses in all of college basketball. And they're going up against a team that is number one in America in scoring offense, scoring efficiency. Just your early take on Saturday's game there in Knoxville.
Well, you're right. It definitely sets up, and it looks like in the numbers that it's offense, best defense. And Tennessee has held the most opponents under 60 points in a game this year. I think it's 7 on the season. And I think Alabama's been over 100 in a win 8 times. So you talk about all the two extremes meeting together. Now, here's the thing. There's been times where Alabama has played pretty good defense. It's not every game. Same thing with Tennessee's offense. It's not like they're just trying to stay in the 50s, and that's why they're just always slowing things down and playing those kind of games. Tennessee actually wants to get out and run. They're just a little bit more selective, and they're not as good a perimeter shooting team as Alabama is. So Tennessee's just got to be careful in a game like this to be selective and not get into a track meet, especially if Alabama's making early threes. So there is a little difference there in the two in their approach, but I wouldn't rule out that the game will be probably somewhere in between the two extremes of under 60 points Tennessee's defense and Alabama over 100 points on offense.
So, Vince, I wanted to ask you, for this game coming up against Alabama and really, for the rest of the season, how important is Chaz Lanier? Because, when you get into a game against a team like Alabama, you imagine you're going to have to score points like you're talking about. And it feels like, this year, you go and look at what he did against Texas A&M a couple of nights ago, and it just has felt like at times the Tennessee offense, when Lanier's hitting his shots and he is in command, then they're as tough to beat as anybody else in the country. And if he's having an off night, it seems like the offense as a whole kind of sputters a little bit. So just how important is Chaz Lanier to this game on Saturday and really the Vols' hopes come postseason play?
So here are the numbers to outline your question and make the point. Tennessee is 17-1 when Chaz Lanier scores 16 or more points. When he scores less than 16 points, they're 5-5. So that tells you where they're at in that category. So he makes a huge difference. And the thing is that he's playing better, even whether the points are getting above that or not. He's learning how to play. He's seeing more defenses and being grabbed more and adjusting to the physicality, those kind of things. So he's more figuring out how to play against this higher level of competition. And then the points in some games are definitely accompanying it with. And look, there's some other guys that still have been inconsistent offensively. So they do need to rely on him at times. There's been times where they've been terrible in the first half, and then they needed him to kind of keep him in the game, and then everybody else gets going in the second half. So this has definitely been more of a second half team, but they need to prevent the droughts that they've had at times offensively. They do need him to have big offensive games, and it also opens things up for everybody else. But it's a give and take. When him playing better, he's getting to the rim, he's pulling up for 2 at the elbow, he's got such a quick release. That frees him up for 3-point shots, and now his three-pointer is not as contested, it's not as deep. And now other guys, because of the defense is now having to account for him on 3 levels, now that opens things up for his teammates more. So it starts with him, not only the points, but how he plays in playing on all levels. And that is definitely their recipe and their route to success, and the numbers back that up this year.
Vince Ferrara is joining us, 99.1 The Sports Animal in Knoxville, as we talk Tennessee, Alabama coming up on Saturday. I wanted to ask you about the basketball fan base for the Tennessee Volunteers, because there's no question that Rick Barnes is one of the most respected coaches in all of college basketball. Tennessee, they've won 50 of their past 64 basketball games. They've won 24 of their last 33 in the SEC. But for whatever reason, it seems like they can't get over that hump. Does this team have the DNA, in your opinion, Vince, to be able to get Rick Barnes over that hump and get Tennessee to an Elite Eight or a Final Four?
I think so, but they're not to the level to where I can't still see or think of a scenario where they could also get upset in the second round, if that makes sense. And as good as this league is, and as good of a competition that they've seen regularly, we've seen them play up to competition. We've seen them play down the competition, but they're good is as good as it gets in college basketball, and right up there, probably overall, definitely behind, Auburn, but not to where they're unbeatable either. But also, we've seen them have ugly stretches and ugly halves. They did in the first half against LSU. So I do see the Final Four potential to get over that hump, to your question. But I don't think they're immune to a second-round upset, especially depending on the opponent they get, because they have been inconsistent at times. The positive, if you're going to lean in one direction, the positive is they play such good defense that should be able to carry and go venue to venue, and it has kept them alive until they start playing better on offense or get that different level of edge. They've been much more of a second-half team, but because they can rely on that defense, they can kind of manage some of those rough patches probably better than some other teams.
So, Vince, I wanted to ask, how important do you think this matchup is on Saturday from a seeding standpoint? Because as we look right now, a lot of projections, Alabama on the 1 line, the number 3 overall seed, Tennessee right there on the 2 line as the number 5 overall seed. Do you look at this game as kind of, all right, whichever team comes out of this is going to walk away with a 1 seed into the NCAA tournament, and the loser is going to have to, I guess, settle for a 2 seed?
I really don't. I do think it matters because it's going to be a great notch in either team's resume to get the win, and I don't think it docks the loser much, even though, especially if it's a close game. But Alabama still has Florida and Auburn after Tennessee. What happens if they beat Tennessee and then they lose those other 2 games? So, and then, what happens in the SEC tournament where you're going to play good teams regardless of where you're seated? Also, depending on what happens in these last 3 games, and no one has it tougher than Alabama, for sure. What happens if you don't get a double bye? Now you're trying to get to the weekend and stack up wins to improve your number 1 seed resume, but you're having to do it against a really good team an extra day, and then day after day after day. It's tough enough to deal with these SEC teams twice in a week, much less one day after another when it's a completely different style of play. They have a scout on you already, all those kind of things. So I do think there's still so much competitive and difficult basketball for both teams afterwards. Tennessee's is easier. They are at Ole Miss, still a top 25 team, or they were recently a top 25 team. And then they have South Carolina, which they should take care of business at home. But then the SEC tournament, they're going to play tough teams. What if they're 1 and done? What if Tennessee wins this game and then, okay, well, they win their last 2, but they're 1 and done in the SEC tournament, and maybe Alabama goes on a run? So I don't think it is as important as maybe it's been presented as. The winner is going to likely get a 1 seed. I think there's too much tough hoops afterwards still to come.
I agree with you 100%, Vince, but I do want to ask you about the importance of the SEC tournament to the likes of Tennessee, Alabama, Florida, and Auburn. There's some Auburn fans that call into this radio show, and they just say, we'd be completely fine with losing on Friday because look what happened to Alabama last year. Alabama got blown out by Florida in their first game in Nashville, and then they went on the incredible run and went to the Final Four.
Yeah. Easy for Auburn to say when they have such a cushion as the number 1 overall national seed, right?
That's true. That's true.
It doesn't matter for them, but if you're right there neck and neck with somebody and it means you being the bottom of the 1 line or the top of the 2 line, then it might matter. Or maybe you get sent out to a less geographically appealing region because you're on the 2 line or 2 and 3. So Yeah, that I think is just circumstantial in that. But we've had plenty of fans that are like, I want nothing to do with it. The SEC tournament, and we all know Calipari's stance on it too. It's for some going on a long run of the weekend hasn't harmed them at all, and they end up still having success in the NCAA tournament. For others, you could tell they're exhausted, and then quick exit in the NCAA tournament. And there's examples the other way of people being one and done in the SEC tournament or even conference tournaments, and then they go on a run in the NCAA tournament or vice versa. So I unfortunately, I don't think there's just one thing that is enough of a track record to show this is what you ideally want. Just depends on what you need to get your business done. I think maybe the sweet spot is winning some games, but maybe not playing the maximum games. That might be a way to get some confidence, play well, lose a tough, close game. No big deal. We're good. But at least you're not perceived as a team that is, stumbling into the NCAA tournament or anything.
Vince Ferrara of 99.1 The Sports Animal up there in Knoxville joining us for a few more moments here on Three-Man Front. So I want to switch gears with you for a second, Vince. I want to ask baseball. I know we're only a couple of weeks into the new season, but just if you could, what are your early impressions of this Tennessee squad? Obviously, the defending champions of the College World Series from last year, one of the top teams in the country again this year. But just through 2 weeks of the season, is this looking like a squad that's going to have every opportunity to go and potentially repeat as World Series champions?
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate you asking. I call the games with John Wilkerson, the longtime voice of Tennessee baseball, and it's a team with different names. They were great in the portal and got some of the best players in the portal, but they've always still, even last year's team, a big majority of their team has been guys that they have signed and have developed in their program. And then if you look at their lineup, they got a bunch of juniors. Now, some of them are transfers as juniors. Others are guys that have been in the program a couple of years that are now coming into their own, that are exploding. So they've got veteran players, but they've also got a bunch of talented freshmen. They had the perfect game, #1 recruiting class, and you're seeing some of those guys really look the part right out of the gate to go with the transfers, the older players that have developed. They got All-Americans in a lot of spots, and they got a lot of power arms as well. So they'll get better as the year goes on, because this coaching staff that's been together the entire time of Tony Vitello, with Josh Elander, their associate head coach and recruiting coordinator, Frank Anderson, pitching coach. Both of them are as good as it gets in the country. They've all been together. So the culture's set. The consistency is there. The development is proven. They're getting more guys in the majors. So everything is kind of rolling, and this team looks the part, very versatile, can win a lot of different ways, and a lot of power arms. So, yeah, this is going to be another really good Tennessee team this year. And off to no start, but they'll be challenged more in Houston this weekend at the Astros ballpark. A couple of top 25-ish teams that they'll play there. So we'll find out a little bit more this weekend in Houston.
All right, Vince, before we let you go, I got to ask you the toughest question you're going to be asked all day long. You ready?
Okay. Yeah.
Who's going to have more postseason teams playing this year? SEC basketball in the NCAA basketball tournament, or SEC baseball teams playing postseason?
Oh, man, that is a great question. I will lean towards baseball, because there are some teams in hoops that are kind of stumbling and can't get out of their way right now.
Right.
That maybe could play their way out and maybe not get the max that everybody is talking about, maybe 12 or 11, something like that. And baseball is crazy deep. So I would lean, just off the top of my head, I'd lean a little bit baseball, but it is a great question.
Oh, well, listen, Vince, always appreciate your time. You can hear Vince weekday mornings there on the Sports Animal 99.1 in Knoxville. Enjoy that beautiful 60-degree day in the eastern portion of the state of Tennessee, and we hope to talk to you soon.
All right, fam. Appreciate you. Thanks, guys.
Thanks. That is Vince Ferrara joining us on the Buyers Right Hotline for all your insurance, financial, and HR needs. It's Buyers Right Insurance, a Higginbotham partner. More Three-Man Front here on Jocks 94.5. If you missed any of our interviews throughout Three Man Front, Nick Roush from Kentucky Sports Radio, Rodney Orr, you just heard Vince Ferrara from the Sports Animal up in Knoxville, Tennessee. You can download the Three Man Front podcast each and every day and take a listen in its entirety. The text line brought to you by Courtesy GMC and Trustful, 205-834-9450. They continue to come in, and we always welcome your input.
Absolutely. We have Matt in Birmingham. He chimes in about Gene Hackman. He says, underrated Gene Hackman performance is The Replacements.
Another good one.
Let's see. We have somebody asking a hypothetical about Alabama basketball. They say, to show how important his absence is, along with how deep Alabama's roster is, my question is, if Latrell Wrightsell didn't get hurt in the Oregon game, where is Alabama currently ranked and how many losses do they have? I mean, I think that's a fair question to ask, but I mean, maybe they're a couple spots higher. I don't think that. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe you don't lose the back-to-back games against Missouri. You probably don't lose that game to Oregon that was a close game and came down. You know, maybe you could say, oh, well, maybe they don't lose to Ole Miss in that scenario either. But I mean, again, with how highly ranked Alabama is and how impressive their record's been anyways, I mean, maybe you're a game or two better, but I don't think it would make that big of a difference in terms of the rankings. But I do agree. I do think that Latrell Wrightsell being out is maybe a bigger limitation and a bigger struggle at times than some people know. Let's see. A couple people have asked about this. I guess we didn't talk about it on Monday. Multiple people have texted and said, what happened to your car, Conrad? I need a recap of the car issues. So quickly, I wasn't on the show on Friday. I was supposed to go down to visit my dad in Florida, and I got near Jemison, and my tire exploded on 65 South, so I got stranded on the side of the road. And unfortunately, it was later at night, so it was dark outside and it was freezing. So I had to call a tow truck, got them to tow my car back to where I live around Vestavia, and got all that taken care of over the weekend. Paige came and picked me up off the side of the road. So it was all is good. All is good now. 2 new tires on the front of the old Stallion I drive around, and we're good to go now.
And we're glad you're okay.
Thank you, Molly. I appreciate that.
Because that's scary.
Well, it's nice that Molly was thinking about you, but she
that was coming.
Didn't reach out to her over the weekend because she was sick. But
sorry, Molly.
It's okay.
I'll do better.
I'll remember that.
Let's see. Michael texted in. He says, let's call the iBob the Iron Ball. Yeah, see, I think that, people would take that the wrong way. I think we all understand. Let's see. Alan texted in. He says, don't forget about this name suggestion, the Bammer Barner Classic, as we all lovingly called it, the BBC. I was a big fan. I was a big fan of that one. Mm-hmm. Maybe one fan base not as big of a fan as the other one, but it's a fun name. Let's see. Vicky texted in. She says her favorite Gene Hackman movie is The Conversation. Have you ever seen that one, Pat?
I have not.
I have not seen that one either. Gavin texted. Oh, this was the person shouting out UNA. Sorry, Gavin. He says, I am 100% not an Auburn fan. Okay, sorry. I did not mean to. I'm so sorry that I put that label on you. I understand. Let's see. Someone says the best out of context statement. Pat says to a woman, you carry more weight around there. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Yeah, you can take a lot of things we say out of context and have some fun with
I
them.
think Molly understood mine.
I did.
I don't know. She looks pretty offended.
No, I'm okay.
She's not going to side with me on anything. I didn't check in on her last weekend, so that's how it goes. Appreciate y'all texting in, 205-834-9450. Get on the Courtesy GMC text line. We have one more hour to read your text.
Absolutely. Next hour. Today is a very big historic day in college football. We're going to share what it means, what happened, and it almost happened to Alabama. That's all. Next hour, Three Man Front. It is 1 o'clock. Welcome into the fourth hour of the Paul Feinbaum Show, which will be in an hour from now. Landry will be back with us on Monday, right?
We'll see.
We'll see if he makes it in. Conrad, Molly, Pat with you for another hour here on Three Man Front.
Maybe Landry doesn't want to come back.
Based on some of the pictures I saw, I wouldn't blame him.
So I think he's doing okay.
It looks pretty nice out there.
Very nice. Very much so. We would love to hear from you this hour. We are wide open. Text line 205-834-9450 on the courtesy GMC text line 1-800-239-WJOX. That is the phone number. I know a lot of our listeners have been down at the Legacy Arena with the basketball championships going on, high school. That's been going on this week downtown.
Mm-hmm.
So I know a lot of people's been tuned into that on APT. They've been showing the game. Typically, Landrum does a bunch of the championships, but he had already had this trip planned with family. So out of town for that. Been spending a lot of time talking about Auburn's big win last night in regards to taking out the Ole Miss Rebels in just incredible fashion last night. We previewed their game against Kentucky. You just heard Vince Ferrara from the Sports Animal there in Knoxville, Tennessee, telling us about the Alabama-Tennessee game coming up. There is a little bit of news coming out of the UFL, and this is a bit concerning. So the United Football Players Association and the UFL, they have been working towards a new labor contract since December. On February the 21st, however, the league's latest proposal included an increase in total compensation over last year when players earned $55,000 of base salary, sources familiar with the negotiations told the Sports Business Journal. The following day, February the 22nd, all 24 UFL quarterbacks, 3 per team, signed a letter to UFL President Russ Brandon and Executive Vice President Daryl Moose Johnston. That reads the following. The proposal our Players Association received on Thursday was unacceptable and insulting. We, all the quarterbacks of the UFL, have collectively decided not to attend the UFL quarterback training camp this weekend in Arlington, Texas, in protest of that proposal and the message that it is sent to us as players. Players believe the inadequate increase in salary and lack of year-round health insurance for players is unreasonable considering the UFL's substantial investment this offseason in marketing and sales staff, as well as the 111,000 square foot lease on a football operation headquarters in Arlington.
I would think the year-round health care, that would be a big one. I would certainly want to fight for that. And correct me if I'm wrong, but this is not like, this is not like a professional sport where, for example, in the NFL, right, quarterbacks make significantly more money than any position. Every player in the UFL makes the same amount, correct?
Base salary.
Or base salary, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Union leaders in the UFL both declined to address specific questions. The UFL issued a prepared statement saying the UFL continues to negotiate in good faith with the players' union to finalize a collective bargaining agreement, which will be beneficial both to the players and the league. The quarterbacks were scheduled to gather on Sunday in Arlington with activities running Monday through Wednesday. Full training camp is slated to begin Monday, March the 3rd, with the regular season beginning March 28th. So that is some bad news when you have all 24 quarterbacks in the league say, we're not showing up this weekend. Do better.
So we just going to have a year where the league just runs the Wildcat? Every team just
push.
Run the Wildcat?
Tush push.
Tush push the whole time. That's all they're going to do.
Yeah, I guess we'll see how that works out. It's very close to the start of the season, and obviously we know here in Birmingham, the quarterbacks that we have on staff, whether it's Jamar Smith or Magoo or Corral, some of the other guys. I mean, they're very important, and as we know, Birmingham's had some exceptional quarterback play the last 3 years, winning championships. So hopefully they're able to get this figured out. And root for the players, particularly on the healthcare year-round thing, because they're training all in the off season and taking care of their bodies and putting themselves at risk when they're going through training and all that kind of stuff. So we'll see how it plays out.
So a little bit of a hiccup there for the UFL in regards to what's going on with them. This is a very big day in sports history. if you follow these type things, and I'm a history nut, so I kind of always look at what's going on in the world of sports. So in this state, back in the 80s, SMU football got in some serious trouble. If you think back to this SMU football program, it was put on probation back in 1981 for 29 recruiting violations during the 1978-79 academic year. It involved the recruiting payments to famed running backs Eric Dickerson and Craig James. Now, SMU was then banned from television and postseason play based on those violations that took place back in 1981. So they were already on probation. So then in August of 1985, a 29-month-long NCAA investigation found 36 more recruiting violations, some of which occurred while the school was still on probation of the one that I just mentioned. So that's them being hammered twice within a very short period of time. That landed the program then on 3 years more of probation. So that takes us to November of 1986. Local television station WFAA in Dallas received a tip that a former Mustang linebacker, David Stanley, and other players on the roster were being paid not only monthly stipends, but also for them to sign their letter of intent to go to SMU. This is the way it sounded when David Stanley talked to the TV station that broke this story.
Threatened my father, saying he wanted to fight him. And like she said, I only wanted him to walk away after I heard that. And I mean, I hate Texas.
David Stanley says he has an idea why grown men get so intense about something like this.
I think it's money, the money involved. There's so much money involved in college athletics. I received $25,000 to attend SMU, and Bootsy Larson paid me. And I took the money.
Okay. Who else offered you money to go and play football?
Texas Tech offered me money.
Okay. How much did Texas Tech offer?
They offered me like $50,000.
So there you go. So he was offered $25,000 to go play at SMU. Now, the very first part of that clip, here's the interesting part, Conrad. He was talking about how much he hated Texas. And he was talking about how he picked up the phone in the house, and one of the assistant coaches at the University of Texas was so incensed that David Stanley was not going to play at the University of Texas that the assistant coach had threatened physical harm to David Stanley's dad. And so when he picked up the phone and he heard that the assistant coach for Texas going crazy on his dad, he just said, I just hated Texas even more.
Mm-hmm.
And you had Texas Tech, according to David Stanley, offered him $50,000. Now, back in the early 80s, if you do inflation, if somebody's offering you $25,000 to go play for SMU, that is the equivalent of today of around $80,000 to $85,000. So
I think we should applaud him for going where he wanted and not going to the highest bidder.
Well, here's the thing. In the later interviews, it was a situation where they said, well, why did you end up going to SMU when you could have made $50,000 to go to Texas Tech? He said, well, I was going to go to SMU anyway. So I thought, if I'm going to SMU anyway, and they want to give me $25,000,
great.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they want to pay me $750 a month as a stipend,
I'll take it.
I'm all good for it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. So that was the story from WFAA. And needless to say, once that story aired, the NCAA said, you know what? It's time for us to get involved. So after that report aired, over 200 SMU professors submitted a petition to the school's board of governors calling for the end of the quasi-professional athletics at the school. So you had 200 professors at SMU come out and say, we are absolutely done with this crap.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is bad. Like, we've been in trouble. Now there's more bad news. We got to get rid of that. Okay. So then the NCAA said, okay, well, we're going to open up another investigation. And once that investigation took place, they found that SMU had established a slush fund. Now, this slush fund was set up to pay players for their letter of intent, and then they would give them the monthly stipend, like you heard David Stanley talk about. So then all of a sudden, they also found out that this not only went through the football office, but this went all the way up to the chancellor's office. Everybody at the school knew about it. It even went to Austin, to some of the bigwigs in Texas state government. I mean, this was a huge deal. So the NCAA, after the 2 previous investigations that found SMU guilty over 60 violations, they found even more problems. And on this date, in 1987, David Burst of the NCAA made the announcement in Dallas.
What I will say, I think, will summarize what most of you who are present already know, that our investigator interviewed David Stanley, and that the violations did in fact occur, that the violations were major in nature, and that the violations were more pervasive than just the David Stanley matter. Therefore, the university will be prohibited from participating in any football game or scrimmage with outside competition in 1987. Under the legislation, the program would be considered to be terminated.
It was stunned silence.
SMU gets the death penalty. That's how the NCAA refers to its stiffest punishment.
It was surreal.
The most severe penalty in the history of the game. Football canceled this fall.
I felt like I'd just been hit in the face. I mean, everybody's just in shock right now. Everybody's walking around in a daze.
Did you see this coming?
No.
David Burst, who was the enforcement director at the time, he fainted the day of the announcement.
I think the pressure of what he was about to do played a big part in it.
Shock is a pretty good word to describe what was going down.
Next year's SMU football season will not exist. No games, no scholarships, no recruiting.
There you have it. That's the way it sounded on this date in 1987. So the 1987, the NCAA, they barred them from playing any games in that year. And while the school was allowed to play 7 road games in 1988, all the players had already left.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have a football team. So basically the program was shut down. They did return to the field in 1989, and it was a shell of their former selves. They won 4 games over the next 4 seasons. Matter of fact, the program did not have a winning record until 1997, and they did not reach a bowl game until 2009.
Oh.
And now they're stealing bids from Alabama.
I know. Can you believe that? So
Look how far they've come.
That's the worst offense.
Mm-hmm.
So they get the death penalty. So back on February the 1st, 2002, this is the way it sounded when the University of Alabama tuned in to their NCAA infractions hearing. Again, this is February 1st, 2002.
It was very clear that the death penalty most probably would have been imposed in this particular case, which again, most likely would have included the death penalty.
God forbid there's ever another appearance, ever. Should there be, particularly within the 5-year period, I don't know what's left.
That's the way it sounded on this radio station as we discussed Alabama potentially being shut down as a football program because they were already under probation, and the Albert Means case came out in the early 2000s, and they were still in that window. And you just heard the NCAA, they obviously credited the University of Alabama and Gene Marsh, the compliance director, because Alabama was very open. Alabama cooperated with the NCAA, but they were a hair away from getting shut down as a football program in February of 2002. And you just heard that's what took place. They also went on to say that they were staring down the barrel of a gun in regards to terminating the football program. Alabama penalties included 5 years of probation, a 2-year postseason ban from bowl or play in the Southeastern Conference Championship game. It cost the university around $3 million in SEC shared revenues. They had a reduction of 21 football scholarships over the next 3 years. Also, the total number of players on scholarship could not exceed 80. So that hurt them in the backside as well.
Definitely.
They banned boosters from traveling on team charters. The boosters could not attend closed practices. They couldn't donate money for football camps. Additional penalties at the University of Alabama permanently banned 3 boosters, Logan Young, Ray Keller, and Wendell Smith, from having anything to do with the athletic program. The school also had to disassociate from a 4th booster, Jim Johnson of Columbus, Georgia, for at least 3 years. I was covering it when it was happening, and I remember the day clearly, Conrad, as I tuned in because it was a teleconference,
mm-hmm.
and listening to them, and literally holding your breath because the potential of a Southeastern Conference school in football was staring down the barrel of a gun to be eliminated, and that was Alabama football in 2002, just 4 years prior to Nick Saban coming to the University of Alabama.
I was about to say, just imagine how different things could be. I mean, who knows? We might not be here if that had happened, right? If you didn't have Alabama football to cover, to go along with Auburn and everything else that goes on in the state, it's wild, especially when, learning from you and getting to, you having covered it and being around it at that time, just how close it really was for Alabama to not existing as a football program. And as you said with SMU, I mean, now obviously they made the playoff this year, but I mean, it's been 40 years really since they were able to recover from something like that. And yeah, it's just wild to think about that whole circumstance and then obviously how it could have hit a lot closer to home here with Alabama.
No, it was one of those deals where Alabama was already under probation, and then the Albert Means story broke out of Memphis, Tennessee, which it was alleged that Alabama was paying, let's just be honest, not the very best offensive lineman, $200,000+ to come to Alabama.
Well, and that was the thing. It's like you were paying a lot of guys to be a little above average. Like, you weren't winning national championships every other year.
No, you weren't. And a lot of people might forget about this, but Alabama was still under probation when Nick Saban got to Alabama. They were wrapping up that portion of the and supposedly that was one of the reasons why Dennis Franchione ended up taking the Texas A&M job, because and also at that time that's when Alabama had to get creative with their scheduling because they had a postseason ban, and back then you could schedule Hawaii for a 13th game on the schedule and it would not count against you. So if you went to the island, you got to pick up an additional game, and so Alabama basically scheduled Hawaii so that was their bowl game because Alabama could not go to a bowl game.
Didn't they lose?
They did.
Yep. Worked out great.
Yeah, it did.
Got a fun vacation out of it.
Yeah, it did. So, and then to Mike Shula's credit, I mean, I thought Mike Shula did a yeoman's job with making that program competitive. And then when Nick Saban came in, he was able to take it to obviously another level that we've never seen in college football. But yeah, on this date in 1987, the NCAA leveled its death penalty to SMU. And then correspondingly, about 25 years later, it was almost a situation where Alabama was in trouble and they could have been shown the same result.
And now you've got backups, playing for SMU that are probably making $100,000
easily
compared to the $25,000 they were paying for Stanley back in the day. And that's the craziest part to me is how quickly, this stuff has changed. We can look back on that. And I mean, it was a while ago, but it wasn't that long ago. And, now that dollar amount, can you imagine going up to a player now and saying, hey, you want to come to Alabama or Auburn for $25,000?
They would go you mean for like a weekend, like barbecue? Is that what you're going to pay me to show up for recruiting weekend? Or are you talking about the actual season?
Yeah, big difference now.
Yeah, it sure is. More three-man front on Jocks 94.5.
123 here on your Thursday afternoon. Three-man front, Conrad, Pat, Molly here with you until 2 o'clock when we hand you off to the Paul Feinbaum Show. Landrum's going to be back with us here Monday for a Reaction Monday with a great weekend of SEC hoops coming up for us here. We do have a little Pat Ponders that's going to come up later on in the show, but we also have a bunch of text messages that y'all have been sending in throughout the day here, as well as phone calls. So we're about to go back to the text line, but first let's go to the phone lines where our buddy Don is on hold. Don, how are you doing today?
Hey guys, how y'all doing?
Doing well.
Hey, Molly, glad to hear you're feeling better.
Thank you, Don. Feeling much better.
Yeah, let me give y'all a little update on our great friend PG. He's still struggling a little bit, but getting better. But Conrad and Pat and Molly, our boys in bed, and he's lost about 10 to 15 pounds already, being that sick.
Oh, my goodness.
But he's better, and he's hoping to be back with us next Tuesday for our good friend and family member BB's birthday party.
That's right.
We're all
BB's
looking
birthday is
forward to
coming
it.
up on Tuesday.
Okay. But, hey, Pat, buddy, a lot of that stuff you just talked about, I did not know all that and everything. But how close was Auburn to getting the death penalty with Eric Ramsey and Pat Dye?
They were not as close as Alabama because of the fact of all the different probations that Alabama was under from the Gene Jelks and the Antonio Langham stuff that took place. And,
right.
And, you know, it just was not as blatant, especially with a school under probation. It was just like what happened to SMU. SMU within a 3 to 4 year period, they had already found over 60 some odd recruiting violations. And then a slush fund was established and found out about. So, you know, one thing's for sure, the NCAA was willing to make an example. And according to that investigation in the early 2000s with Alabama, that they had really never seen something that blatant as opposed to what they did back in the 80s. And so that's why they were staring at the potential of the death penalty.
Now, is that what Philip Fulmer was getting into it with everybody about a long time ago when Philip Fulmer got mad at you and Paul?
That a lot had to do with some stuff that happened up at Tennessee with some former players and some recruiting. And there was some booster involvement at Tennessee, but nothing ever happened to Tennessee. And matter of fact, the NCAA really never even looked into it. And so it took Tommy Gallion and some other attorneys down here in Birmingham and throughout the state of Alabama to bring attention to it. And that's why they wanted to get access to certain things with Philip Fulmer and some potential boosters where they could prove that Tennessee was in the wrong, just like Alabama was accused of being in the wrong.
Yeah. See, Conrad, there's so much you can learn from Pat, buddy.
I learn something new every day.
I'm telling you. Well, guys, I just got back from Legacy Arena. I had to leave because I got to go to work later. But I tell you what, Pat, that is one of the best events every year. I try to go to that every year. And I got to do a little research. I just watched Florence play. They had a kid named Chandler on that team that was unbelievable. Had 41 points today in their win over 7A semi. And I was hoping the Hoover boys started next, but the girls started. So I came home to get a little rest before I go to work. But my goodness gracious, guys, how about my Auburn Tigers last night? Well, wow.
Yeah, they look super impressive. As always, they have all year long. But
they're no Florida, though, right, Don?
Yeah. Okay, am I going to start to have the Get You Too? Because Damien gets me with that every morning, Conrad.
No, that's the last time I'm going to bring it up.
Well, that's okay. Hastings will probably bring it up again, picking on me and everything. But as usual, guys, and Molly's going to laugh about this. I say some stupid stuff on y'all's airwaves.
No, not at all. We appreciate you, Don. Yes, sir.
All right. By the way, Pat, I talked to your buddy Paul yesterday.
How's old Paul Feinbaum doing?
He's good, but I got involved in the Jim from Tuscaloosa controversy yesterday, buddy.
Yeah, did I understand? Did Jim call back on the show last night? Is that correct?
He called back, Pat, and buddy, I don't hope I didn't get you in trouble, but he called back right after my phone call. And Paul wanted me to tell you that you're a genius for not letting him call your show.
Well,
It's been a while since we've heard from
Because
him.
I hope I didn't throw you on the bus, buddy. I told Paul the story. He said, yeah, he can call, but Pat would keep him on hold for an hour before he'd hang up.
You're not supposed to tell those secrets on national television, Don. Come on, some things you got to keep in house, brother.
Buddy. I know, my friend, but Paul got a good laugh out of everything. Now they're trying to have a vote about whether they're going to take him off their what did you call it, Ring of Honor and Hall of Fame.
Yes, the Ring of Honor.
And everything, and boy, I tell you what, our buddy Legend called him up the other day. He was screaming and hollering, and me and Legend become friends and everything. And he's gonna him and some other people are gonna make a special appearance on my big birthday coming up in March too.
That's going to be great. That's going to be a lot of fun. Well, Don, enjoy the rest of the beautiful afternoon, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Don, give us a call at 1-800-239-WJOX. So I'm reading this statement, Conrad, and I'm a little bit perplexed. So On3 tweeted out a quote from Kalen DeBoer.
They did. Yeah, so Kalen DeBoer, because he talked with Pete Nakos, I believe Pete Nakos is the one who reported the comment about the spring game or the modified spring game a couple of days ago. But yes, there's a new quote out, and it's talking about revenue sharing in college football. And so this is from Kalen DeBoer, quote, having a more balanced playing field helps our situation. It allows us to get to where it was at one point just a few years back, where recruiting is real recruiting, not just someone who's going to put in the highest bid, end quote. As you can imagine, the responses to this are a bunch of boo-hoos. A lot of sympathy for Alabama football.
Yeah, I
don't think you're going to get that.
I don't know if I would have gone that route.
Probably not.
Yeah.
Because because people are going to read into that and go, oh, so are you just acknowledging that you're not going to be able to compete at the highest level in this current climate?
Yeah,
I don't think that's what he meant, but.
Well, it was just like when you had Greg Byrne make the reference that he did in regards to Alabama not having all this money, or Fort Knox underneath Coleman Coliseum in regards to trying to pay players and revenue sharing and things of that nature, because a lot of people around the Southeastern Conference will go, well, I mean, you can't tell me that all those 5-star players ended up in Tuscaloosa just because they wanted to, go tubing on the Black Warrior River.
Pat, you wouldn't insinuate that. They love the community.
Yes.
All the great restaurants and
very much so.
Social life. Yeah. Tuscaloosa is great.
It is.
Why'd you want to go anywhere else?
It's fantastic. It's wonderful. Another wonderful place that you need to go is in Trussville, and that's courtesy GMC. You need to head out there this afternoon or coming up the next couple of days this weekend, because they've got incredible deals every single day. I've been telling you about this incredible Sierra AT4X. This thing is unbelievable. And I'm telling you, folks, $11,000 off MSRP, multiple to choose from. I'm talking about a front and rear electronic locking differentials. It's a combination not offered in any competitor in its class. The Multimatic DS SV dampers, AEV stamped steel front bumper with front winch capability, and stamped boron steel front approached AEV skid plate. How about the 16-way power heated and ventilated front seats with massage feature? It's a must-have. Get by and see the fine folks there at Courtesy GMC. You don't need to go anywhere else. Go to their website, courtesybirmingham.com, and you can do a search, and you can compare all these models. I'm talking about the Sierra AT4X, or if you want to look at the SLT Premium Plus package, Courtesy GMC's got everybody beat on that. That's Courtesy GMC in Trussville, right off of I-459, exit 32, next to Lowe's on Edwards Lake Road. More three-man front. This is Jocks 94.5. It is 1:36, Jocks 94.5. Hope everybody's enjoying their Thursday. It's another beautiful day. Got UAB basketball tonight taking on Wichita State. It's a pick'em currently, according to Las Vegas. That game is set to tip off. Man, it's a late night, Conrad, 8 o'clock.
I mean, hey, if we survived last night, I mean, I think the final game or the Arkansas-Kentucky game, I mean, that got, or Arkansas-Texas, that got done at what? 11-ish, something like that. So, yeah, as long as it's done before 11, I'm good. So I got to get my beauty sleep.
So I told you a couple days ago that it was official, or that it was going to be made official, and it was made official today, that Northern Illinois has officially joined the Mountain West Conference coming up in 2026 for football and the Horizon Conference for all other sports.
Okay.
Nothing screams Mountain West like Northern Illinois.
I know.
Yeah.
DeKalb, Illinois.
Mm.
Just think about the mountains. The
it's beautiful
peaks.
this time of year. Yeah.
You know, when the students get out of class on a Friday afternoon, they head up to the Northern Illinois mountains.
It's beautiful.
Enjoy the countryside and
the Northern Illinois mountains.
Yeah,
Lovely
it's
this time of
a
year.
small chain of mountains that go up into Wisconsin.
Yeah. You get out more, Conrad.
Do you feel any sort of, because they're the Huskies, so do you feel any sort of like connection to Northern Illinois because of that?
No.
Okay.
I do not.
I just didn't know if it, the Husky was in your blood or not.
Nope. Not so much.
Maybe they could help with the live mascot somebody was asking about earlier.
Yeah, I don't know why they don't have a live mascot. I've only known only a couple of people in my life that have had Huskies.
I had one growing up.
Did you really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, what was his name?
I hear they're temperamental.
Her name, Molly.
Oh,
thank
sorry.
you.
Way to go, Molly.
No, her name was Spotlight because she had two yellow,
Aw.
yellow patches of fur above her eyes, so called her
Cute.
Spotlight. Very sweet dog.
So speaking of Northern Illinois, don't know if you saw this, but the Northwestern women's basketball team, they have been assessed 2 forfeits by the Big Ten Conference.
4?
They did not want to go play January road games against UCLA and Southern California.
Oh, they just said we don't want to play those travel, so we're just going to cancel.
Well, it was during the wildfires.
During the wildfires.
Yeah.
And they said that they were not going to go. They were not going to travel there because of the concerns of the wildfires. Although UCLA had offered to play them at an off-campus location.
Okay.
Northwestern said, no, thanks. Now, let's just be honest. I mean, UCLA is 26-1 on the season, and USC is 25-2.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they're 2 of the best teams in the country. Yeah. I mean, you were going to get steamrolled if you played them. Yeah.
So, I find that just a very convenient excuse for the Northwestern women's basketball team to not go play the number 2 and the number 4 team in America.
Yeah, I think it would have been different maybe if they were not quite as dominant as they are.
So they have been assessed 2 losses, and those 2 schools have been given wins, which they should.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they were going to win anyway, so yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's something you don't see very often that a conference has assessed forfeits. But Tony Petitti ain't playing around.
No, he's not.
He's not happening. For those of you that's trying to listen to just a service announcement, we've been having some technical issues on the transmitter side of our signal, and that is being addressed. Now, if you're listening to us on the Jocks 94.5 app or wherever you get your streams, we're good to go.
Yeah, watching us on YouTube, you're good to go.
You're good to go. There's no problem. But for those of us, or those of you, I should say, that is out and about around on your lunch hour or getting ready to listen to the rest of our show or the Paul Feinbaum show coming up at 2 o'clock, we are addressing that situation.
I just got news from the suit. He says we are back on.
There you go.
So we should be good to go now.
So how about that? I make the announcement and they make things happen. It used to be just when Paul would say something.
Love when a plan comes together. I'm sure there'll be some big news dump in about 22 minutes.
Yes, there's no doubt about that. Also, starting in this upcoming season, the NFL will use Hawkeye virtual measurement to determine the line gain, and it will be the primary method for measurements in NFL football games. So the chain gang which has been used for practically the entire lifetime of professional and college football. It will be on the sidelines, but it will be used as a secondary method to determine the distance. So now instead of bringing out the chains, the league will go with a virtual measurement. The system works with cameras inside the stadium that tracks players, officials, and the ball. So after the ball is spotted, the system will notify officials if a first down was achieved. Are we for this? We against it? Don't care?
Happy with that. I think that's make it as accurate as
Yeah,
possible.
I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
So it was in use last preseason. And all the stadiums have the technology anyway, because if I'm not mistaken, they use this technology for next gen stats.
I think you're correct. And I think that's part of why it's kind of been a bit of a head scratcher is I think we know
it was already in place.
And even if it wasn't, we know how much money and power the Shield has, right? So it's how have you not taken the expense to develop this kind of technology? But no, anything that can rule out those kinds of controversial plays. And I look at it differently than baseball, right? Because we talked about with the ABS system, how, like for me, I still like the human element a little bit that goes into calling balls and strikes. It's different when we're talking about yardage in a football game, at least it is to me. So yeah, in that instance, if you can be as accurate as possible and not leave that up to, a bad spot by the official and that ends up costing somebody a game, I'm all for that.
Water can find its way into any crawl space, bringing dangerous mold, mildew, and wood rot, but APS can help you today by calling 205-951-9717. It can protect your home's foundation and provide valuable storage space, too. The APS crawl space encapsulation system can stop that water, keep the pests out while lowering your energy costs. The engineers at APS can develop a plan and help you give up a solution today. 205-951-9717 or visit them online at alabamaprofessional.com. When we come back, we'll put a bow on this day's program. We will read your text, take a few more calls. This is Jocks 94.5. 147, Jocks 94.5. Appreciate you tuning us in on this glorious, wonderful-looking Thursday. Tomorrow on the program, Coach Wimp Sanderson will be one of our featured guests. We'll have Blake Lovell on from Southeastern 16. Barrett Salee is scheduled to be on. Yaxel Lindenborg, the outstanding power forward for the UAB Blazers. He is scheduled to be on the show tomorrow. So should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to catching up with him. Of course, getting to recap the game tonight, UAB taking on Wichita State. And of course, the big one coming up Sunday here at Bartow, as UAB will host the Memphis Tigers. We do want to go back to the Jocks text line, though. The Courtesy GMC text line, 205-834-9450. Y'all have been so wonderful texting in throughout the show. Want to try to get through all of them before we hand you off to Paul here at 2 o'clock. So we have somebody texting in about Gene Hackman, who, if you missed the sad news, unfortunately, he has passed away at the age of 95. And so somebody texting in saying their favorite Gene Hackman movie was Clint Eastwood's Unforgiven, which I brought up earlier. It's an excellent movie if you haven't seen it. And I'm sure many of you have. But yeah, he is excellent in that one. Let's see. Somebody else texting in saying, for whatever reason, whenever I think of Gene Hackman, I can't help but think of Superman, because he was Lex Luthor in the 70s Superman films. Had some other people chiming in with that as well. Let's see. Somebody, another suggestion to rename the iBob. We just have the Iron Classic. That would be a safe option if you wanted to go something like that. You know, maybe somebody will come forth and institute this as an actual change or an actual name for the rivalry, especially if, you know, as things are looking right now, these are going to be pretty good matchups for the foreseeable future as long as Bruce Pearl and Nate Oates are here in the state. Let's see. Somebody else texting in. Do you think Mark Sears and Grant Nelson have helped their NBA draft stock by coming back to Alabama for another year?
Ooh.
I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to say no. I think Mark Sears is the same, honestly, as last year. You know, I think his size was viewed as a limitation at the next level. And I think that he's a guy that, in my personal opinion, I wouldn't be surprised if he's a second-round pick and he goes somewhere and is a player that kind of, you know, surprises some people because he is really good at getting to the basket and getting to the rim despite his size. And so for Grant Nelson, again, I don't think he's helped his draft stock. I don't know. Do you agree with that, Pat?
Yeah, I don't see that he's improved because he's kind of been MIA for a good bit of what Alabama needed him to do. Still time for him to get hot. And
if he goes on a run like he did in the tournament last year.
Yeah, it's a completely different conversation. But I think Mark Sears is the same player that he was last year. Outstanding. So an NBA team, what you're looking for. I mean, I think it was a smart move for Mark Sears and Grant Nelson to come back and make the money they're making at Alabama and try to improve their stock.
If Bronny James is worth a draft pick, I would say Mark Sears is worth the draft pick. I'm just going to throw that out there. All right, Drake texts in. He says, didn't Gene Hackman play in the movie The Firm? I'm not sure. Have you seen that one?
You know what? I think he did.
I'm not familiar with that one, unfortunately.
Oh, you've never seen The Firm with Tom Cruise, based in Memphis?
I have not.
And we know I haven't.
Yes. He did play in The Firm, by the way.
This is a good one. Someone texted in. They say, Conrad, this Bucky thing is moving in the wrong direction for you now that your wife knows you can't change a tire. Thank you. I appreciate you. Yeah, that probably didn't help me out. Let's see. Somebody texting in about the SMU death penalty in the Alabama situation, I believe. They say Kentucky's recruitment of Albert Means also led to their program being placed on probation, although not to the same extent as Alabama.
There were plenty of teams, and I've told this before, and again, it's been well documented that there was a unwritten rule in the Southeastern Conference of the line that you should not go over when you are willing to recruit and pay somebody. That's just the way it was. And during that time frame, apparently there were multiple schools that decided that Albert Means was worth not only tiptoeing across the line, but like jumping both feet across that line. And when that happened, there were a couple of SEC schools said enough is enough. And that's when they basically started turning on each other. I mean, seriously, that's what happened to the league. Everybody started turning on each other. So all the unwritten rules, gentlemen's agreements, they went out the window. And that's when obviously Kentucky, a lot of schools wanted Albert Means. So yes, there was multiple teams that felt the effects of Albert Means.
All right, we have Cody who's chiming in on the text line. Cody asked, can y'all do an extra hour until 3 o'clock with the radio feed cutting in and out? I need y'all to do an extra hour for us. Paul can wait.
Let me text him right now. I think Paul would be more than willing to give up an hour of the show so that he can only work 3 hours.
I'd say something tells me Paul would probably not mind that. Let's see. We have somebody texting in. Yeah, we were talking about the late games last night. And they say SMU was a winner last night, but barely. They finished close to 2 in the morning.
Oh, my goodness.
Well, I'm glad I did not try to stay up for that one. Let's see. The same person also says, okay, Pat's on fire with his last 2 or 3 plays. I didn't play either from yesterday, but what do you think about tonight? Do you have any plays for tonight, Pat?
Oh, as of this moment, no, I do not. There's a couple that I'm contemplating, but as of right now, I wish I would, had a better answer for you, but things have been well this week. But no, I do not have.
So you had a very good night last night. Very successful night.
Yeah, it was a very good night. The over Auburn Ole Miss, that was big. Michigan State plus 4.5. They won outright. That was big. Arkansas on the money line was big. Kentucky money line, big. Boise -4, as Brian Edwards told us yesterday. That was big. You see the theme developing here?
Yes.
It was a very fun night watching basketball.
It's very nice of you to take Molly and I out for a steak dinner tonight. After the show, we're really.
I'm really excited.
Really looking forward to that.
Well, a lot of where I will take you will depend on the Cactus League tonight.
Oh my gosh, we're playing the Cactus League.
Yeah, it's spring training baseball, man. I got a lock or two tonight.
Spring
more
training.
Opportunities, Conrad.
I can't imagine betting on any preseason sporting event.
But it's Pat. Are we surprised?
It's about angles, man. That's what it's about. It's about the weather, barometric pressure, and the angles.
Good thing you held off betting on the Cardinals yesterday.
Who says I didn't?
Wouldn't have worked out well for you. I hope.
No, who says I have to bet on the Cardinals?
Well,
hey, if you against the Cardinals,
if you had the Yankees yesterday, you were a smart man.
It's about the Benjamins, man. It's I have my loyalties to my favorite team of all time, but
at the end of the day, it's about the love of the game.
You better believe it. It's about who covers.
Exactly.
Well, and honestly, it works out then, right? Because if you go the other way, well, even if the Cardinals lose, then you got a little extra money in your pocket, and if they win,
then I get to
you're out a couple bucks, but you're happy.
I get to dog you because they beat the Yankees.
That's absolutely right.
I did the other day.
Spring training. That's right. Molly did what the Cardinals have never been able to do in 2025.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Molly.
Thank you.
And then Kevin chimes in, did Albert Means ever actually play for Alabama?
No.
It's a wise investment then, right?
I mean, we're not talking about like a 5-star, NFL lock type guy. That was the other thing that was very surprising. It was just like,
yeah, this is
really?
The one that you're going to get burnt on.
You're going to get shut down as a one of the most prestigious football programs in the history of college football, and you're going to get shut down for who? Oh, okay.
And someone says they should name the, I guess going back to the whole situation with Alabama and then going into Philip Fulmer and Tennessee not getting caught on stuff. They just need to make a Tennessee rule that's the Philip Fulmer rule, where they are free of punishment.
Well, it was really funny because back then, the SEC started turning on each other. I mean, it was nasty. It was ugly. And credit Mike Slive. Mike Slive basically said, enough is enough. We got to get this stuff cleaned up. We have got to get teams off probation. We're going to do things a lot differently. And he did. Mike Slive, to his credit, he absolutely cleaned this league up.
Because that's when you had, I guess, the gentleman's agreement between the coaches and programs of how they would operate. And then somebody decided to go a little above that, and all hell kind of broke loose from that point on.
Absolutely. And
Fun times.
And then the NCAA got a lot of people's attention.
Yeah.
And that,
I would say so.
Of course, back then they actually had teeth. We appreciate you making us a part of your day each and every day. We'll be back here tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. The Paul Feinbaum Show is next for Molly Conrad Landrum off on assignment in the wonderful the state of Colorado. Have a good afternoon.